The question is, what are you going to do about it, right? If your solution is to be like, well, I don't really care that, that I know eating meat is wrong and I'm going to do it anyways. Well, then I would call you a bad person, not for the hypocrisy so much as it is for engaging in knowingly in a bad action.
I think like you can, this is going to sound terrible, but like if you view it currently as a Holocaust, you would advocate for I would believe you should advocate for the better Holocaust and the worse Holocaust, right?
Okay. Welcome to the Autism Podcast. I'm your host, Critical Canadian. If I was expecting this for next week, but Zen reached out and said, I'm ready today at 10 a.m. if you are. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this Thursday will work. That will work. So as we rush to get everything ready and put everything all together, it's probably good. Sort of got ADHD people. We thrive off of deadlines. It's that little short meme where the guy's like, oh, I have a deadline. And the brand's like, yes. And he starts tapping at the computer and writing the script all in one go. And it's, deadlines again have saved us from disaster. And once again, I think it worked here. I think that's just what happens. Yes, the overlay went through. Look at that. Beautiful. We have the guest. We have the topic. Still got the game because all our attention spans are all cooked. So we couldn't possibly just can't possibly just chat. It has to be all the other things that go along with it. I don't want to get into the arguments too much by myself because that seems a little redundant, and ain't nobody want that. Ain't nobody want a podcast on top of a podcast. Podcastisms, like the Matrix, but podcasty. Or no, it'd be like what was Inception? I think was the movie, right, where they kept going into the dreams, deeper and deeper and deeper. I'd say it's like a groundhog, but I went back and looked on my channel. It's been 4 years since we've had our. Actually, I think it might even be 4 years since me and Zen actually had a conversation. It was an interesting kind of. What I should have done is gone back and rewatched some of my stuff, and this is probably what I would have done. Had it been actually next Thursday that we discuss things, but let's face it, I wasn't going to do that at all. That wasn't happening. Because it will be kind of curious to see, because I think in a lot of ways my position has evolved, but it's still, I think at the core of it still kind of holds to kind of what I was hoping to get across. And I think now it's going to, I think maybe now I'll be able to communicate it a little bit clearer, hopefully, as one should hopefully do with their positions if they're actually wanting to hold them and clarify them and work with them. So yeah, it's an opportunity for me to lose my mind, No, actually, Zen doesn't do that. It's the and that raises my goddamn blood pressure. Holy did it raise my blood pressure yesterday? At least 10 to 20 basis points. Woo! What's going on there, Discord? What you doing, big guy? There we go. Jeez. Oh, hello,
hey.
Ice Beans.
Hello, I'm gonna only be here for like 1 minute.
Yeah, that's what they all say. Okay, so 4 hours later.
I'm just gonna say, when I say opportunity,
yep.
What I mean is, I feel like you're the always thought that, or I guess I've come to think, and now I'm like firmly believing that it would be much better to have these kinds of conversations as like chapters, y'all both get an opportunity to cook on it and then come back, have a second conversation. Kind of naturally do that. Like that's what we naturally do in VCs and stuff.
Yep.
But I feel like I feel like it's just it would be much more beneficial if it was also like that for stream. But stream conversations are usually like a recurring topic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like that, nothing actually moves on. Nothing gets solved. It just kind of loops and repeats, and nobody actually has any. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I would say that's like one of my.
You should still think about doing a second part, basically, where then like you take this. If you have time to not, you could just cook on it. And if there is anything to follow up, just do a follow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's actually been one of my criticisms of like the kind of Hutch situation, is it feels like all he's doing, like there's no real understanding that happens. There's no real benefit from either side. It feels like everybody's just lockstep with what they originally believed, and the conversations just go in circles. Like I could cover more Hutch stuff, but I have really nothing has changed. Like I even listened to one off stream by myself, the like 3 or almost 4 hour one that they had Wick had the panel, and honest to God, it was the same. Like it was the same misunderstandings.
Yeah, it was the exact same.
Yeah. And it's just, it becomes really frustrating, because then I don't think the conversations are actually productive, or anybody's trying to understand each other. I think it's just, you're right, it's just content for content's sake, and it just loops endlessly. Whereas, yeah. So.
Okay, my connection is cutting out, but so I'll retreat to the shadows. But enjoy your conversation.
Yeah, it should be good. I look forward to it.
Bye.
Bye. Man, Discord's having I'm clicked off it. It's having a hell of a time. It's like, did you want me to flash in and out so you can have a seizure? Why, yes, I would actually. Thank you. What I love. Yes, I agree. There's a lot of conversations that they loop, and I could cover every conversation about these topics that people have, but if I cover the one, I've pretty much covered all of the rest of them, which in some degree is actually really sad. The lack of quality conversations that we have, and it's even the lack of quality conversations that we have is masquerading as really good conversations. Because with this one, Zenrisha would be like, oh yeah, it'd be really cool, but it might be a different conversation, because I don't actually think, because I remember last time I was very adamant that hypocrisy was important, we need to fixate on it, and now I think it's something that is like a starting point for a lot of things, and I think the conversation's going to go a little bit different. Great idea for a game, actually. Alberta Simulator. You just drive around in a giant lifted up truck rolling coal, and every time you roll coal, you gain points. There he is. There's the man of the hour. Oh, Zen, how you doing, buddy?
Hello.
Oh, you sound really good.
Let me adjust your volume real quick.
Yeah, I'm probably loud as fuck.
I was trying to make sure no echo. Hello?
Hello? Yeah, I hear you good. You sound good.
It's just not picking you up. Give me a moment.
Classic me.
Oh, it's wait. I know what's happening. Give me one moment.
Okay.
I need to make
Over.
Apologies.
No, don't. It's all good. What the beauty of editing is for. Just edit out all this minutia. I'm actually scared to go back and listen to my old stuff because this audio is so good. Yep.
There we go. I hope I'm not echoing. Hello.
Hello. No, you sound good. I don't hear an echo on my end.
This is my first time breaking out the actual professional mic in like ages.
Ooh. Your foray back into the online sphere of political sewage, or what?
I miss talking to you.
I get that a lot, actually, since I've come back. People are like, oh my god, you're fucking back with Chad. It's like, oh, sweet. I'm just poising myself to become the Joe Rogan of the left, you know? That's my end goal. And then I can just smoke weed on stream and have people, and I can just scream at them, you know? Basically what Joe Rogan did.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every day. It's nice when you can scream at someone and be reasonable and...
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Away from it being... And thinking about it and such.
Well, I think well, I mean, rightfully so. There definitely seems to be a correlation between people that you can. People always think a good conversation is a chill conversation, and I don't think that's always genuinely the case. But the problem is a lot of people that get unhinged aren't able to be reasonable as they're unhinged, so it just leads to bad conversations. Yeah,
Definitely agree with you on that one. I think at least in the past, I always enjoyed our conversations because I remember the one that might have gotten the most heated is one time. I think my favorite memory from one of our conversations
okay.
was kind of about whether you're like you asked me whether I'm in favor of any excuse for authoritarianism,
Oh, okay. Yep.
and then we got into it, and then we got about an hour and a half into it, and at one point you asked me, well, why are you advocating for this? And I told you, because you asked me if I would advocate for it. We get looped so far.
Sometimes, you know what? Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
And
we had gone so far from the original point that we had
we're just way off at Neverland. Why are you even saying this? Well, because you asked me about it. Like, oh yeah, my bad, man. My bad. That's on me, bro. That's on me.
I remember that very fondly. I think it was very funny.
That is pretty funny. Seems something very picturesque me, for sure. So, how you been, man?
I can always, as long as we there are kind of conversations where like I can say that and we can take a step back and we can like acknowledge like, oh, that is what's happening, and then there's the kind of people that you talk to where it's like, no, you just your goal is to destroy them, and I'm not a fan of those conversations.
No,
I mean, it can be, but it depends on the. Unfortunately, it depends on the quality, like how skilled someone is at not acknowledging the truth.
Yeah, or it depends on what your goal is. Like, you remember CJ Brown? Remember when I had like the conversation with him when he was kind of being a dickhead? Like, there was no world where I had a salient conversation with that person because that wasn't their end goal, and nor was it my end goal to have like it was definitely more of like a memey, clownerish, like you kind of conversation that. You know, you're right. If he would have been like, well, because you forced me into this topic of conversation, I'd be like, you're goddamn right, like you type deal. But I'm never like I would never want to bring you on, have you argue for something or me pigeonhole you into something, and then have you like die on a hill when we're talking about a hypothetical or a situation that might not come to fruition or might not be worth a hill dying on. Like, I don't want you to leave the conversation feeling like, oh wow, CC was a real dickhead. He never gave me time to explain, or never tried to understand, or when he was wrong he didn't admit it or shit like that. Like, that would leave me feeling kind of bad about the conversation, and not necessarily bad about myself in the sense of like, wow, I'm a bad person, or I would leave that conversation feeling like I failed. In kind of the goals I'm hoping to like lay out as I move forward in the future. So.
Well, with that, I think we can kind of get into it. And
Hell,
I guess.
Yeah. Well, here, I
guess.
Go ahead.
I want to rephrase my point because I think this is something that I failed to do in our previous conversation.
Hey, base, Giga Chat. Go ahead.
In that I think that just as a guiding through line for this conversation. I think all inconsistencies should be ironed out.
Okay.
Or attempted to be ironed out.
Yep.
This conversation, at least the conversation that we had previously, had much more to do with specifically it, at least from the way that I might have been arguing it, had much more to do with not, is this a thing that we should want, or like, is this something that we should be accepting of, but is it completely wrong to hold positions like this? So it's like, as a person that advocates for some things that are against the norm, and I've looked at history, first, the more radical your position is from the status quo, the more likely your reality is not going to align with what you advocate for, just as a given.
Okay.
Like, if you're advocating for how reality is, it's a lot easier to align with how reality is.
For sure.
So when I was arguing in favor of what we argued previously, it might have been from the perspective of, as someone who argues against the status quo, this is an argument style that is consistently and always will be used against people that are advocating against the status quo.
Yeah,
and I think that there are a lot of examples throughout history where at the end of the day, someone's internal incorrectness or someone's internal struggles did not matter in the long term. Like the example, because I was going through examples for today, and the one that I brought up is like Martin Luther King had many inconsistencies in his personal life and his actions, but that doesn't change that his advocacy, right? So like I often think about examples like that, and then I also will think of, okay, if we're criticizing it in these examples, like if we're criticizing Hassan, which I'm at the point, I think we're both at the point. It might have taken me a little bit longer that I'm like, yeah, Hassan, throw the baby out of the bathwater.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can be salvaged here. Or I mean, I don't know if you believe that, but I'm kind of once he started doing his advocacy for the Houthis, I was like, all right, I'm out. There's no.
Sorry for the
nothing
which
here
one? Oh,
left.
the Houthis?
The Houthis.
I thought you said the Newfies at first. I was like, yeah, them Newfies. Continue.
So, in terms of like supporting Hassan specifically, I am at the point where I'm not gonna validate him. I would validate along the same lines of the argumentation, and I will also say that I think that there were much stronger points at the time that we argued this to argue against Hassan.
Yep.
I'm not sure you dispute that. Like, I think, for example, I think Hassan's like take on landlords, for example, I was talking to Parse about this, and Parse is under the belief that like TYT, even before like Hassan was on Twitch, TYT was running defense for terrorists at the time.
Oh, okay. Were they actually? In what capacity?
That's Parse's. I didn't hear Parse's full.
Oh, okay.
Description on that, but that was Parse's kind of label. So I was kind of because I kind of asked him because as Parse is one of like the longest running Hassan haters of all time. So I was asking what, and then I had assumed that the reason that he disliked Hassan was because of his landlord take. And then he said no, it was because of the defense for terrorists during this time of period. So I guess what I'm more saying is that at the time I think that there were more salient criticisms. Like at least from my perspective, I think that like his argumentation towards like violence towards landlords was really bad. And then obviously he's become significantly worse in modern times. Like there's a reason we're no longer talking about his house as his biggest controversy.
Right. Yep. Such child's play before, right? Like to have those problems again.
Yeah. But I would argue for the merits of being at least at the very minimum being skeptical of hypocrisy claims.
Okay. Yep.
Because I think that I can point out examples throughout history that if we let hypocrisy stand in the way of progress, and that we need to use, there needs to be a level of criticism beyond just hypocrisy bad. There needs to be okay, this hypocrisy is bad, but is it as bad as this? And we have to weigh these things and do this other stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had some of our most significant progresses that we've had as people.
Yeah, I guess agree.
That's my thesis.
Yeah, no, actually, I agree. I think last time one thing I failed to communicate and that I've had time to think about, at least over the last little bit and maybe flesh out a little bit better, is I think hypocrisy works as a starting point criticism to know how the rest of that person's personality is going to go. Because I think there was a good quote. I meant to look it up before we started, but it's like, do I have hypocritical things about me? Maybe. I am multitudes, right? The idea is that you're a salient, you're a fluid person, and certain things about your ideologies or your actions aren't always going to line up. But the idea should be that if those hypocrisies are pointed out to you, you should, it should be a place for yourself of self-reflection and, kind of, is what I'm saying and what I'm doing lining up with the person I want to be? And if you're somebody that truly cares about living that life where your actions and your words line up, I think all you have to go is like, oh, hey, this thing that you're doing is kind of counterintuitive to what you're doing. It's being a little hypocritical. Somebody might go, well, yeah, I agree with that. Maybe I need to change what I'm doing. Like the vegan example where they're eating a hamburger and you're like, hey, by the way, that's a hamburger. Or don't you advocate that you're not supposed to be eating animals? If that person goes, you're right, I shouldn't eat animals, and they never engage with another cheeseburger, the hypocrisy in that moment didn't make them a bad person, but it was a point of self-reflection that they required to avoid doing something, you know, taking another action that might make them a genuinely bad person. Because yeah, there's going to be things that are kind of in your life that aren't necessarily always lining up with your values, whether it could be a self-blind spot, or maybe you've convinced yourself that what you're doing isn't actually against what you believe. So I think it becomes a good starting ground for somebody to lay criticism at your feet, and how you take that initial criticism, I think, really showcases where your personality and where your headspace is regarding those ideas and actions.
How you take that criticism. My first question, I guess, to this is, how do you address, so you acknowledge that there are systemic solutions and that there are interpersonal solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that your interpersonal actions can conflict with your systemic prescriptions, right?
To some degree, yep.
Well, just that can be hypocrisy, and that can be bad, but people do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, as a question, like, as a person, I am favorable towards the vegan argument or the vegetarian argument, where I think that I falter is purely on the element of the self-prescription of it, rather than most of the other prescriptions. Like, if you went to me and you should say, we should regulate how these industries are handling animals, we should try and have more care, we should have all this other stuff, we should try and dismantle the meat industry as a whole, and like try and decentralize it. I'm very appealing to those arguments, and I most of the time argue that vegans are just doing a poor job focusing on that you personally need to stop eating meat. And that a boycott is the most effective way to get their message across. That's normally my disagreement with vegans. And it's not, my feelings on that are probably not going to stop me from eating meat.
That's fair.
But I still am of the belief that in like a perfect society, or in a society that if we could rebuild society from the ground up, I'd probably choose to build it to prefer not to.
To eat meat.
And I don't know, that position itself isn't hypocritical, but I guess my question is, there's a systemic prescription that vegans are failing to make and that they fail to see.
Okay.
But if they saw that and addressed it properly, would it be okay in your mind for someone who advocated for veganism to eat meat?
Not if you're advocating for it. No, I think because I think you're wanting to set certain actions in motion, right? Like, to my knowledge, nobody is forcing you to eat meat. That is largely a choice, right? And if you are somebody who wants to see consumer sentiment wane on eating meat, so that, like, because realistically, that's what a lot of these things get pushed, is consumer sentiment, especially around like products and things that we buy. I think if you're somebody who's going to advocate for the reduction of, if you're not engaging with it yourself, it would be like, why would other people do it? What incentive do they have for it if they're not advocating for it?
Yeah, I agree. It's uniquely bad if you're advocating interpersonal action, and then failing to meet that interpersonal action. I do agree it's uniquely bad there.
Yep.
Let's say, like, for someone like me, for example.
Okay.
I'm gonna advocate. My advocacy for anything on the level of veganism, while not a priority in the slightest for our modern contexts, is purely regulationary.
Yep. I would say that you're probably not being a hypocrite there, eating meat, because your advocacy and your stance is, well, the government should do something to regulate me, to like stop me from eating meat. Which in that case isn't actually involving you really taking an action. It's somebody else taking the action that's you're wanting to like guide your choices. Like, yeah, if there was a reduction to meat, wouldn't hurt me. I'd be okay eating more vegetables than meat type deal. But until that regulation's in place, I'm not really going to change my personal eating habits. I don't think you'd be a hypocrite in that sense, or even necessarily doing anything wrong.
That I am a hypocrite on the base level that I think that it is worse to eat meat and that I do it.
Okay, yep.
It's just that I don't think it's as bad, or I think that there are bigger issues. I think that it's not me eating meat is not stopping the system that is creating the meat. And and that if everyone did believe this, that yes, it would.
Well,
but I don't view that as a valid or like a realistic mechanism to stop the system.
well, it might not, you individually, maybe not, but you recognize that like let's say it's 100% of the problem, right? Is everybody purchasing meat? You realize that you would have at least a sliver of a percentage for that reason of meat still being sold at a store, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you. That's what I was trying to say. It was more that I think that the mechanism to stop the system is not via boycotts. I think that's the.
Well, it would be on a collective scale, right? Maybe not on a single individual. Like I can't boycott meat and get them to stop it, but if we all collectively did the thing, it would stop meat from.
Yeah, I agree collectively. I'm trying to talk a little bit more pragmatically. Of like we've seen boycotts exist through history, and that we've seen that solutions typically come from top-down state pushes rather than trying to influence like market measures. And that I think that it's a little bit wasted effort, if that makes sense.
Okay, interesting.
Not that's a good thing to do. I agree it is a good thing to do. It just doesn't pass the bar for like something that I recognize that if everyone stopped eating meat, we would stop. Like then obviously the meatpacking industry would collapse. That's just a given.
Yeah.
But I'm not under the assumption that like that's going to be a thing that I could convince.
Well, I think from your pragmatic, that's what I was just about to say. I think from your pragmatic worldview, it doesn't seem like a viable solution because you're not going to be able to convince people on a large enough scale to stop eating meat.
And even if they like believe, because I think on an intuitive level, most people value animals. And then I think that unless if it's not a matter of survival, which there's that argument as well, but if it's not a matter of survival and like it was a direct choice, people would choose not to kill the animal to sustain themselves, right? I think that's the alienation. Like I don't know, like for example, like if you had plenty of food, would you choose to kill your cat to eat food? Like no, obviously, right?
Depends. Torpy's a pretty big loaf of bread. I might sizzle her up one day, but no, I get what you're saying. But I guess like a lot of times like top down things usually sometimes take form only because there's a bottom up response and it looks like top down because that's the action is in our face.
I'm not against bottom up responses, but I'm more in favor of advocacy rather than personal responsibility.
Well, that would be my question is like when you do advocacy, what are you hoping to achieve by doing that advocacy?
Regulations on the industry mostly.
Okay. I'm trying to think because
I'm not saying if I have an end goal of stopping people from eating meat. I haven't even like thought about that because I don't think it's necessarily a really helpful thing to do.
Well, then I guess my question would be: is there ever a benefit to advocating to the general public? Wouldn't we just always want to advocate to politicians? Like there would be no reason to do petitions or things like that because there's no benefit with the people. It should only be for bigger organizations that you target.
I think it's helpful to advocate to more people on a grassroots level to do advocacy. Because we've seen the effectivity of that.
Well,
I think like...
Yeah, but the reason you'd be doing advocacy to more people would be to hope that they change their views or their actions around that particular item, no?
Well, insofar as their actions result in political advocacy towards the state for this uniquely. Like, for example, I'll make an argument. Okay. Let's say during the civil rights era, I don't think it would have been a really helpful thing to go around in the South and advocate for you to interpersonally treat black people better, for example. I think that would have been a wasted effort. And though you could do that, I don't think that was going to achieve the systemic thing that we needed.
Okay.
I think it was important to take a systemic approach to it.
Okay, so you're saying like even if you went down there while the systematic stuff was happening to change like people's views on how they view like black people, you would say that's a wasted effort.
I'm saying,
and you should put all your like.
I would at least say it's not as helpful. Not that it wouldn't be helpful.
Okay.
That I think that it like if, for example, if someone tells you like, hey, you have a problem with racism, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not going to these people and de-radicalizing them. I'm like, the effort to de-radicalize someone from this takes so much work, and I applaud the people that do it. But I don't know if it's the like.
Well, that could be different from looking at somebody and being like, "Hey, you think like racism is bad, but you still call people the N-word, like derogatory, right? Like I would say that person in that moment, their personal action could actually have quite a large effect on the culture at hand, right? Because it's like, have you ever heard that like if your neighbors know you're cheating on your taxes, they're more likely to cheat on their taxes?
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay. I think that wouldn't be the case if like individual actions weren't super important to what the collective does.
I'm denying the fact that the individual actions do impact what the collective does.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to deny like any aspect that you could build movements in this capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that at the very minimum, and I'm like, once again, I wouldn't tell. I want to make sure I'm not saying it's wasted effort. Just that I think that it's not the most effective route to accomplish goals.
Yeah, you're saying if like the policy making is like 80% of the work, the individual actions is like maybe 20% of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not saying that individual advocacy isn't important. And like, if I go out and I stop eating meat, and I can that can maybe demonstrate to someone else. Like, I have taken time in my personal life to try and like I have always lived in a very conservative area, and I have tried to take up personal projects among my friends.
Mm-hmm.
To try and get them out of the things that I think are most urgent. Like, once again, I think that my advocacy, this sucks, and vegans don't view it this way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that vegan advocacy is one of the least important parts of like something that I would believe in, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a very low priority, unfortunately, because I think that our goal should be build a society that we could accept we could potentially accept veganism, not necessarily advocate for it in our modern society, because there are so many people that believe it in a certain way.
Well, I guess I'd be curious to hear what you think drives like cultural change in a society. If it's just like policies that we lay out that actually changes people, or if it's the interpersonal relationships that they engage in that has them engage in better mindsets or better cultural things. Kind of where
it's
does that?
Definitely a relationship, right?
Okay. Yeah, I would agree.
That interpersonal action does influence it, and that movements have to start interpersonally.
Yep.
But I think the failure of vegans, and they don't all do this, but I think when they kind of end up doing this, is they go under the assumption that their interpersonal action, this is something that has plagued veganism, that their interpersonal action should either involve shaming or has remained exclusively at the interpersonal level.
Okay. Another question just popped into my head. If the interpersonal action is the lesser of the two things that get cultural change done, why is vegans being the way they are maybe turning people off from veganism as a whole? It seems like actually the interpersonal and the way that vegans conduct themselves is actually like highly correlated to how effective their movement is.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think I think it's because of the shaming aspect of it, the idea of like, let's say you were open to the idea that eating meat is bad, but you still eat meat, and then someone comes along and says, "Hey, you're a horrible person for eating meat, and you should stop eating meat. And if you don't stop eating meat, you're a horrible person." That's just going to turn people away.
For sure.
I think that's the level of advocacy that a lot of vegans do, and that's a lot of advocacy that I see from an interpersonal level. That doesn't mean that all vegans do that.
No,
there are plenty of vegans that I'm sure that advocate for it very intelligently.
So do you think if they were better with because that's sounds like more like a messaging problem than it does like an interpersonal problem. If they were better at their messaging, do you think the interpersonalness of vegans would actually go a lot farther?
I think it would influence a certain sect of people. I don't know if it would get the societal change that they want to see.
Really? Okay. So like if they were less shamey and more people were easily able to understand that like, hey, it's not that it makes you a bad person for eating meat. There's just more healthy and responsible ways that we as a society can grow and sustain our food source. You think if they went with that messaging, it would be as effective or more effective at getting like regulation pushed for veganism?
No, here's the specific distinction.
Okay.
I think that if you, let me rephrase my claim.
Yeah, of course.
I think that individual advocacy needs to be at a state level, and if it existed only on an interpersonal level, like a lot of vegans do act, then you would just have a subset of vegans within the population that believe in veganism, and then you're gonna have some people that don't believe in it. I think it needs, at some point, you need to create a movement strong enough that can push for regulation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and I think that's where I would say the 20% is on the policy and the 80% is on the people, because, like you just said, you need to grow a movement. Well, that's getting people on board. That's people understanding you. That's people agreeing with what you're doing. That's people taking actions that, because like realistically, if vegan, because I agree, I look at veganism and eating meat in a very weird way. I see animals as they have utility, and if one of those utilities is you want to eat them, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Whereas if somebody has more of a moral condemnation, you're right, it comes off a lot stronger. But I think if more people were like, hey, maybe we should do it, not as much meat because it's a lot healthier for us. And if you saw, like, not necessarily overnight, because I'm not saying boycotting, but, instead of picking up 6 pork chops for the week, you pick up 3, even that slight interpersonal change that you're engaging with is going to have a massive ripple effect if everybody does it, right? Or if you get, it doesn't even have to be everybody, if you just get more people doing it, like one more person buying 3 pork chops instead of 6 is better than that person always buying 6 pork chops. You know what I'm saying? Like that is that's an incremental personal thing that you can do. That's really easy for most people. Maybe you substitute with beans. Maybe you do some of the meat substitutes that are getting pretty close to the real. Like there's little things that people could do interpersonally that lead to big collective changes, as long as everybody's want to do it. Everybody wants to do it.
I agree with you, but I guess if you mind if I take it back to the civil rights.
You can fucking take it wherever you want, brother.
At what point? So we had this group that was being hurt by the actions of another group, right? That's the we have two ethical actors within the agency. We can, like, the animal element removes it because the animals are unable to advocate for themselves. But now we have a group that is able to advocate for themselves. And that they're being affected in this way, and they have the ability to advocate. And you need to do a very base level of motivating the base of people that agree with you, and then any supporters in your out group, right?
Yep.
You need to do that base level, and that is very important. But I'm not sure how much the actions of, like, how the individual actions of people got attention outside, like, how much of the attention was driven by the legislative ability and, like, how it was able to be pushed. Because, like, as we both recognize, I was talking with, do you know Chip from Ice Means a Server?
A little bit.
He was talking about how he was bemoaning this yesterday. That when you look at least America's elections, because we have a very low turnout, if you judged it by the percentage of people, like, if the people that didn't vote was a candidate, that they would win every election.
Yep.
And this applies even more the lower you get in our system, whether you get on a local level, whether you get on a state level, where you get what level you get on, is that it doesn't take that many people, or it doesn't take, like, a huge amount of people to get a movement going. It just gets a significant amount of passion and advocacy where there is an opposition. You need to meet opposition where it exists, and there will always be opposition. But
sure.
It just takes organized advocacy.
Yep.
And
yeah, no, I agree.
And I guess, so, like, let's say we're talking about eating meat, and I do the thing, right, where I have which I already do. I have a limited amount of meat that I have in my diet.
Okay.
And then let's say that where I do eat meat, let's say I prefer to eat something like shellfish, which I view as lesser than like cow, for example.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Like, I do all of that advocacy, and then someone comes up to me, I do these interpersonal actions, and they tell me, hey, you believe these things, but you're not doing enough. You have a level of, because you believe eating meat is wrong, but you still eat meat, and then it's hypocritical. What do I do with that?
Well, okay, so your stance in this scenario is you are staunchly against eating meat, and you've restricted part of the meat inside your diet, correct? Okay, and you've substituted, and well, I would say in that instance, if your position is you're staunchly against eating meat, and you're still eating meat, I think that call out of hypocrisy is fine. The question is, what are you going to do about it, right? If your solution is to be like, well, I don't really care that you know, that I know eating meat is wrong and I'm going to do it anyways, well, then I would call you a bad person, not for the hypocrisy so much as it is for engaging in knowingly in a bad action and doing it anyways. I would say that is what makes you a bad person. It's kind of like a subsection of the hypocrisy, but it's not the hypocrisy itself. Because then if you were to listen to that person, you'd be like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, I didn't realize that, like, I thought this kebab was like vegan or something, or these things, I thought I was buying the Beyond Meat section, and you legitimately thought that. I would say in that moment where you're willing to hear the criticism out, address the hypocrisy, that is like, it speaks to your character that you are trying to live the lifestyle that you want other people to live. It'd be well, like, okay, go ahead.
I want to remind, for the purpose of this conversation, it's not a claim that the claim is not that you want other people to live a lifestyle that you're not living. It's that you're not pushing this on other people. You just internally think that it's probably better for you not to eat meat than it is for you to eat meat.
Oh, if you're internally thinking that and you're not advocating that other people live a certain lifestyle, that's a hypocrisy that you then have to choose with. You either have to accept that you're going to have that form of hypocrisy and you're okay doing something that you see as wrong, in which case I would probably still, I think it would be a self-reflection point for your morals, and when are you going to convince yourself to do other things that are necessarily wrong that you know are wrong. But as long as you're not outwardly telling other people to do things, I don't think that hypocrisy necessarily is something that we need to be concerned with.
Yeah, so like something that I'm going to refer to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to refer back to, if I could ask for quick clarification.
Oh yeah, of course.
When you were saying that if you believe in this message that even just reducing your meat intake would be helpful, right?
Yep.
And how does that relate to the moral condemnation that you just gave of the person, I guess?
Well, it would relate to themselves, right? Like in the sense, like if I don't know that person holds that view, I can't necessarily call them a hypocrite. But from an internal perspective, as that person, I would be very leery if they weren't wrestling with the question internally about reducing their meat when they know it is such a wrong thing to do. Because I would. If I could look inside that person's head and they realize that eating meat is wrong, but they take no actions to reduce that, it would make me very leery for the other things. Like, okay, they think that murdering people is wrong, but when are they going to justify that actually murdering this person is okay? Or what other beliefs from an internal perspective are they unable to hold themselves to? You know what I'm saying? Am I explaining myself?
I have a couple questions related to that.
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best to explain.
So there are societal norms, right?
Yep.
And those push people in certain directions.
Okay.
So, for example, do you see a difference between the societal norm as it exists currently around like veganism?
Okay.
Is that eating meat is perfectly fine, okay, right? And that the societal norm against like murdering someone is that no, that's not okay.
Okay.
So when you see someone acting in an inconsistent manner, is it a legitimate concern that they might act like immorally against the way that the system operates, or like what's okay? Is it more of a concern? Is it less of a concern? Is it a concern at all? Does the status quo impact your thinking at all?
I don't think the status quo impacts my thinking at all, especially when you're going to talk about internal experiences that what people view as right or wrong for themselves and as society as a whole. I think it would just be really weird for you to think that like eating meat is like wrong and you're murdering, like you see these pigs as like having sentience and family, and it would be like ripping them away from like you see it as like a Holocaust situation, and then you go pick up a 6-pack of pork chops. Like if you had vocalized that opinion to other people and then you're doing the action to opposite, like, yeah, I think people would be rightfully leery of you at that moment. But if I don't know that thought about you, that's not something that I can necessarily quote unquote judge you for. But then again, like once again, social pressure to some degree shouldn't have an effect on what you believe is right or wrong, right? Like my mom made a great t-shirt that I should have wore today, that, you know, things are right or wrong, whether, you know, even if other people aren't watching you type deal. If it's something you truly believe is wrong, I I think it would be bad for you to engage in the action you think is wrong. I don't think that's I don't think we want people living those kind of lives. I don't think that's very healthy to a normal functioning society. It's different if you didn't think eating meat was wrong. Like if let's say it was the opposite, where you lived in a society where everybody was vegan and you thought that eating meat was fine. I think it'd be totally okay for you to eat meat. I don't think that would be morally, you wouldn't be committing some moral sin there. Just because society thinks that something is okay or wrong doesn't necessarily mean it is actually okay and wrong. I think these are hard questions that we sometimes have to think about to our own degree. I think that's why you had things like the civil rights movement, because they recognized that something was wrong in society, even though the societal norm, was to hate people that weren't white. Hopefully that answered your question. Yeah.
Do you think most people believe that eating meat is okay, but if we put it to the level of, for example, if there was someone that just loved buying cats from a shelter and then cooking them,
okay,
I think that at least as a society we would view that very, very differently.
Right? In our society, maybe, but we can conceive of a society that that's just normal. So would it? No,
I agree. Yeah. I agree. We can definitely conceive of society, but my point is that what the societal pressures matter, and that I think at least because the way that we've been raised by our society, that at least we have a level of affection that's stronger towards our pets than we have towards what we deem as our food. And then I think that on a very base level, and that's something that vegans recognize, is that there is a level of care that we kind of place on our pets and our animals, at least broadly. Like you might not, in the example that you described, but I think that at least in my impression of most of society, I think that we think that there is some value in the survival and the happiness of our pets, right? We clearly deem that animal abuse is not okay, either because the people that you could argue that the people that do animal abuse are more likely to have correlate with these mental problems, so we don't want to allow it. But sure. I think generally there's a thing that we've said: we don't want to treat animals in this fashion, this poorly.
Yeah, but I don't think that necessarily. I guess this comes down to even a weirder question more than hypocrisy, is what makes something right or wrong, and should we be more pressured by society, or should we be more pressured by the way we perceive in the reality that we fit into to actually determine whether things are right or wrong? Because realistically, for me, I don't think it would matter if the social norm was you should beat your kids with a belt, because I would always think that's wrong, because that's it's up. It doesn't matter what society is pressuring me to do, I probably still wouldn't engage with that. If I truly believed that hitting your kid with a belt is wrong and society deemed it okay, if I was still then turning around and beating my kid with a belt, that would make me a bad person. I would be a bad person, even though society deems it as a just thing to do.
I agree. I'm trying to mostly make a descriptive claim of that people feel this way, not making an agreement or an affirmation of whether we should or shouldn't feel that way at the moment.
Okay, yeah, I would agree that there's social norms that people adhere to, and they kind of get their kind of sense of morality from. Yeah.
Yeah, and that in trying to do interpersonal advocacy, we're attempting to affect those social norms, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
That's the thing that's the attempt of what's happening.
For sure.
So at least from my perspective, as a vegan, I have a question. Let's say I'm a vegan, right? And I'm and I don't eat meat, and I do everything, and I'm a saint towards my own beliefs.
Okay.
Would it be a good use of my time to find someone who has similar feelings that I do, but isn't as far along as I am? But they're doing the advocacy work that is important, that is going to push towards my goals. And I go up to them, and then I do the moral frogging that vegans like to do, of pointing out their hypocrisy, that they believe in animals, but they are not pursuing these actions to the degree that they should, while they are doing the action which I believe is more important, which is going to push society towards eating less meat in general.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, I might have a question on the back
of
that. If all we ever did was agree that eating meat was wrong. We passed policies that dealt within the realm of like eating meat is bad. We're going to reduce the amount that consumers can buy from stores, but nobody ever actually reduced their meat consumption. Would you say the advocacy was effective?
State what the law did again exactly.
Okay, the law was exactly as vegans wanted it. It reduced the amount that stores were selling, but people found other ways to continue eating the amount of meat they did. Would you say that the advocacy was effective?
Through like just for this for my own mind. Like they're either going out and hunting it themselves, they're doing their own farming, or they're like getting it through black market means.
Sure. Yep.
I would label as effective, but along the different lines.
Okay. Explain.
It depends if like, because I agree with you. I think if we outlawed meat, there would probably be some form of black market that would form for meat because there's just that human desire and want for it.
Yep.
My most, like, for example, the vegan advocacy that I want is more specifically more humane treatment of the existing industries, not necessarily not at the moment doing like restricting selling of the meat.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important thing, because like I'm of the belief that first there are better ways to kill meat and to eat meat than others.
Mm-hmm.
Either from a like this is what you eat level, and also from like a I think like the you can, this is gonna sound terrible, but like if you view it currently as a Holocaust,
Mm-hmm.
You would advocate for the I would believe you should advocate for the better Holocaust and the worse Holocaust, right?
Okay.
I think when you get into this stuff, we need at least I take a descriptive label is that I have an understanding that people will be inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that on some things I'm inconsistent on
Yep.
levels of effort, right? That I think that on the things that I really, really care about, I try to be as consistent as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But like consistency versus comfort and survival are always something that arise, and this is the struggle of hypocrisy, right? And at least for me specifically, and this might just be where we disagree,
Mm-hmm.
I've come that there are certain forms of inconsistency, especially in advocacy, that I am going to judge a person for, and I would judge anyone on on just a level of trust. That inconsistency is bad. If you act inconsistently, I'm going to trust you less.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess for me specifically, that doesn't go to the level of me morally condemning a person or viewing them as a bad person just because I don't trust them. I can just ignore them. I don't have to associate with them.
For sure.
But it's like I don't think you're a bad person as long as you're not hurting other people.
Okay.
I just think that you're a flawed person, like we all are.
Okay, then I guess my question would be what is it just hurting of like other people that makes you morally bad? Like what makes somebody morally good and morally bad?
I think generally it is involving, for the most part, for me specifically, the first thing I'm going to look for is whether what you are doing is leading to the harm of others. I'm not really a person that like feels super strongly about self-harm. If it's something that I've always held the opinion that if it's something that you have or it's your mentality, as long as you're within your right mind, if it's something that you believe it's all right, we should try, and if you're not in your right mind, we should have some try to assist you to return to your right mind.
Mm.
But I do tend to believe that it's hard to, at least maybe if this is an American-centric perspective
Mm-hmm.
of like freedom, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but anything internally, you can be a fine person as long as you're not affecting and hurting the people around you.
Okay.
Ice Beans wants to clip my Holocaust statement. Okay, thank you, Ice Beans.
I guess my big question for you is like we'll kind of go to the civil rights because I think that's an interesting kind of topic of conversation, because I think with the civil rights stuff, I think it was actually a ton of people wanting and living the, you know, kind of quote unquote anti-racism life that led to a lot of people coming together collectively to then maybe push for policies. But I don't necessarily, like, at the moment of policy change, it wasn't like, whoop, all of a sudden, whoop, the South's not racist, right? Like racism's gone type deal. I don't know if you can ever just policy away bad actions or bad things, because I think if that was true, I think like prohibition would have worked to get rid of like alcohol sales. Like people would have made better choices when you policied away, but all it did was force it into a different type of arena in society. So I think at the end of the day, the small collective actions that we all take all add up to something much, much larger. And I think it's good to give people, and this was something that when we had our last conversation with Glitterbell, was like, what can individuals do on a individual level to affect a certain outcome? I think it's important to give people things that they can do in their everyday life. And I think there's things that, like, if you're going to be, especially leaders, if you're going to be a thought leader, or you're going to be an influencer, or you're going to be these things, I think when you give things to people to do, I think it's really important, like, to lay a guide work or a foundation for them to follow. We see this a lot in parenting. Like, I am definitely my child's role model, his biggest role model. Things that I do are directly going to filter down to him like a goddamn coffee drip machine, where it might not necessarily be exactly what I'm doing, but it's going to filter down to him, right? So there's going to be, if I'm touting at my son all day, it'd be like, hey, you should be really accepting of anybody regardless of their skin color. And then every time we pass a black person, I'm dropping the N-word at him, derogatory. Like, my son's going to really look at me and be like, yo, what the f-? Like, you're saying we should be accepting of all people and all races type deal, but you're not really engaging in any actions that does that. It's gonna make him question. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, what my son's going to listen to is not my words. He's going to listen to my actions, because he wants to be just like me. And I think that is where the individualism of these situations really comes into play and really flourishes, because I agree that you can't just do anything as a single individual. It takes individuals doing things together to, you know, lift the tides or change the shape of something or ebb the flow of water type deal when it comes to ideas and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I want to make sure it's clear I'm not advocating against interpersonal advocacy. But I guess there's a couple things that I want to ask.
Okay.
Specifically about, oh God, the one question superseded the secondary question, even though the secondary question was more important.
Okay. It's fair. Happens.
I might just have to ask the first question.
Okay.
If someone is not making that individual advocacy prescription, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say, we'll bring this right back to Hassan. Hassan isn't advocating that you as a person need to act in an anti-wealth capacity.
Mm-hmm.
He has. Let's assume that he hasn't for the case of this example.
Mm-hmm.
That you need to be, you shouldn't be flaunting your wealth. You shouldn't be wealthy. It's something to just accept about reality or whatever. But he's also advocating against immense wealth because of a specific problem that it causes.
Mm-hmm.
That Hassan could be completely of the belief that he doesn't cause.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the advocacy against extreme wealth is usually an advocacy against the outsized influence he gives over the system itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that influence is destabilizing, which is an influence that Hassan has through his platform, but not through his wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Hassan isn't good at getting his message to people because he has a super PAC, for example. It's good because he has a high-profile Twitch platform.
For sure, but his wealth allows him to do that, though. Because if he wasn't as wealthy and he had to go work like a 9 to 5, 12 hours of streaming just probably isn't on the table for him.
There's a difference. There is a clear difference of wealth by getting by and also having like an immense platform. So I don't know if I fully accept that, because I think that even if, like, let's say Hassan, just for the example, donated 90% of his wealth and survived off of the 10% of it that he kept.
Mm-hmm.
plenty of streamers can get by, and I wouldn't say that his wealth is a mechanism for his advocacy.
Sure, but it is a tool to show his principles, right? Because like you remember when he bought that guy a computer to edit, and he's like, "I'm giving you the means of production."
Actually, no, but please tell me.
That honestly, God, it was funny as fuck. I don't remember all the details about it, but it was basically people were criticizing him because he wasn't paying his editors, right? So instead, what he did, instead of setting up like a nice like, hey, you're gonna edit, and I'll give you like 15% or 20% of whatever YouTube brings in, which would be a lot more like there's collective action to grow something we're going to collectively enjoy. If you make the YouTube channel bang in, the more money you make, right? That's personally how I would do it. And I don't even tout myself as a socialist, but in that moment, right, he not only did he not do that, he even went, I would say, a step further and was kind of stupid about the way that he displayed his understanding of what the means of production was. So it's one of those it's one of those things that's like you're toting values. You have the wealth because he has the wealth to pay these people. I'm sure he could lose 20% of his YouTube revenue or whatever and be perfectly okay. But instead of taking that criticism and being like, you know what, maybe there is a better system I could devise for my editors, it kind of just gets like pushed off the audience. Everybody memes about it. LOL, socialism means no house. I got to give away 90% of my wealth. But in reality, what is being said is, hey, there's better actions that you could take as an individual to spread your influence and to show your audience and show people that there are systems that you could do that would mimic what it is you're trying to talk about, right? So it's not even so much that the advocacy is there, it's the advocacy plus the lack of effort that makes the hypocrisy and makes it so much worse than if he wasn't advocating and just did what he did. Right, because if
the thing that I find, at least the thing that I find the most offensive about the statement that you just told me is that he demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of the thing that he's pushing for, which is which is a non-hypocrisy point. It's a like, why are you talking about? You have no concept of what you're talking about.
Well, and this is where the hypocrisy I think sometimes stands out, that separates the grifters from the people that maybe just aren't always aware of what they're doing. Is it actually like living up to the lifestyle that they want to promote? You know, it separates the grifters from those people is the fact that when you hear them talk about things, you're like, oh, you actually don't believe what it is that you're talking about because you haven't taken the time to think about or research or learn into, or, you know, talk with people that maybe know more than you. You're just promoting an idea that makes people feel good, which to some degree is just what grifting is. And it's frustrating that for the longest time, you know, he gets touted as like, you know, this beacon of progressivism and socialism and things like that, and people just kind of gobble it up. And then when the hypocrisy is pointed out, it's not met with humbleness or, you know, maybe I should research into it more to get a better positions or a better understanding. It's met with memery and kind of brushed off as you're just a hater type deal.
I think with Hassan, the hypocrisy happens to be the cherry on top with him.
True. Yep.
Among a mix of like very problematic and stupid behaviors that he does. So it's like I'm less willing to defend Hassan because I think.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah, because I think the compounding factors on Hassan are like far worse.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the issue that I have with Hassan goes far past hypocrisy and doesn't really extend to hypocrisy. But I guess if we're going to talk about people because we both accept that people are flawed human beings. Mm-hmm. Let's get into the example that I guess I'm the most interested in, Martin Luther King.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually curious what hypocrisy you thought he can get. I don't know much about his life. I'm too white. I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, internet.
There's a lot of things. So Martin Luther King, his image has very much been you
can call it saint washed if you're
commercialized is the word that I'm going to use, but there's another word that like kind of like pacified.
Oh, okay. You said commercialized, right?
Been turned. His message has been taken from something that was pretty anti-establishment, and the establishment kind of took it and reframed it in a way that seems it is less. So like, he was a socialist.
Okay.
And he was a Christian minister.
Yep.
So he had a lot of very, very strong beliefs.
I'm sure.
Among his civil rights advocacy. And like the main thing that he was lambasted for during his time is he was very at odds with the FBI, and the FBI did interpersonal research into him to find out that while he was on his civil rights marches around the country, he would use that to be infidelitous with his wife.
Okay.
And if you want to use that to call him a bad person, I can understand that. But
I'd say he's a bad person in relation to his marriage.
So wait, put a pin in that. Very interested in that.
Okay.
So that was the thing that was spread about him in a way to try and, but that was an attempt to like take away from what his civil rights message.
Yep.
In the same way that, like, for example, people will this one makes no sense to me in any capacity from like a ethical level, but like the George Floyd bashing that people would do, where he wasn't an angel.
Yeah,
like, that makes no sense to me because the thing is, we saw him get murdered.
Well, yeah, just because he's not an angel doesn't mean he's just like, all right, time to murder him. Like, yeah.
But it's like the strategy of pointing out someone's moral failings when someone does wrong. Like, this has been something that we've seen consistently, like the Republican Party has done in the killings of, like, in the ICE killings recently as well.
Yep.
Is seen as a justification for these horrible actions, which I think you and I are both intelligent enough to see that that's a silly thing.
It is a silly thing.
Do you think that Martin Luther King's infidelity, specifically against his words that he preached of believing in that you need to maintain in a strong family unit, damaged his civil rights advocacy?
Probably in some respects, yep.
Do you think it damaged the point of the message?
Maybe not the point of the message, but I would definitely say it would have watered it down for people that were probably willing to listen, but once they heard that he was infidelity, like having infidelity with his wife, my guess is that it probably, to their ears, the message and unfortunately tone would have changed. So my guess is that if he wouldn't have been cheating on his wife, there might have been a larger subsection of people that he could have reached.
I think now something that we both acknowledge that happened during that time is that message was very much spread around, but that message was pushed to the side by supporters, and they would see that this message is more important than that, right?
Yep.
And would you advocate for doing that?
Pushing like keeping him on as a civil rights leader?
Yeah.
I probably would.
Aside, focusing on what matters, and pushing aside when you have hypocritical figures that you have to accept these people are going to be in your movement, that people are human, and that the message, the point of what you're saying is what matters most.
There's two parts of me, okay? There's two wolves fighting inside me right now. There's one that wants to say, yes, he would still make an effective leader if he stopped preaching about the family values portion, because to me, that portion is just bullshit. He's just talking out of his ass at that point. He actually doesn't give a fuck about family values because he gave in to temptation when it was put in front of him, especially from a reverend point of view. There is another part of me that wants to say, depending on the taintedness of what you've done to the movement, you might have to remove that person from the movement. Even if they were effective. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's because like we saw this with the last, the last US election, and we came close to Canada, where it doesn't always matter what you do. It matters how people perceive you. And it could be that leaving on a figure that has a hypocrisy like that is going to be a lot more damaging than if he was like hypocritical about something else, right? Like whatever thing. Like it's an ebb and flow. It is a scale, and it really depends on how people are going to respond to that message. But I would say that after it being known that he was cheating on his wife, if he was still preaching family values, it would be one of those moments where I'd be like, you need to shut the fuck up, because you actually you don't care about specific family values at that point. It could be that he's like, oh, you need to be there for your kids, and as long as he's actually doing that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I agree with that kind of shit. But if he was like preaching, oh, you got to love your wife, you got to be faithful to your wife and shit like this while out and cheating with her, I'd probably be like, sorry, Mr. King, you need to shut the fuck up about that stuff.
My understanding of it was not a singular action of cheating. It was like a habitual pattern for him.
Yeah, and like that that habitual pattern, I would say, is making him a bad person, and it is diluting the message that he is hoping to spread.
Would you agree that this is a form of purity testing?
Yeah, to some degree. Probably. But I mean, purity tests people all the time.
We also agree that history doesn't really reflect this fact, right?
That it was purity testing, or sorry,
no, that was purity testing, but it doesn't really reflect the fact that it would have been an effective thing to remove him and his message from the movement, right? That the result that we got ended up being that his involvement was helpful. That in spite of the criticisms that he received, he was able to push for the stuff, and he was seen as the centralizing figure of the movement.
In this instance, but I can open up my universe Rolodex, and there could be a potential universe where he stepped down and somebody even more powerful came forward that actually lived more of the ideas than Mr. King did.
I guess, and I agree with you.
Okay.
My perspective is trying to have an understanding of descriptive thought. So cognitive dissonance is a thing, and it exists within all of us, which is what causes hypocrisy, right?
It is, yep.
And it is a born-in fact of our brain. It's a survival mechanism.
Yep, to some degree, yep.
And at least for what I do and when I act and how I treat people around me, I'm surrounded by people that I think are horrible, right?
Okay. Well, that's not good. Buddy, what are you doing? Where are you living?
It's something that I already have to condemn these people for the things that they openly support and advocate for.
Okay.
It's not that they're advocating for things that I agree with and then doing things that they don't. I'm surrounded by people that are advocating for things that I think they're advocating for a death cult equivalently.
Okay. Oh, like your parents and shit like that with politics, or?
Well, no, just I've only lived in red districts. I've lived in heavily Trump-supported areas of people that are still supporting him through all of his actions that he's currently doing.
Okay.
And there are, like I said, there are interpersonal things that I do to try and remove people from that. But I guess for me, if I have a liberal friend that I go to, and like they say that, hey, I probably think that animals have rights, but I'm still eating, but I'll still eat them because it's served to me, and I don't really have to think about it. And there's a level of cognitive dissonance that exists. I don't think that person's a terrible person. I'm fine associating with them.
No, and
I'm fine with it.
I guess like maybe, and you know what? Maybe I was a little too black and white in our last conversation. Good people do bad things, but that doesn't make them bad people. Like, you know that Wreck-It Ralph where it's like, just because you bad guy doesn't mean you bad guy. You know, like that type of thing. It is to some degree like that. Like, don't get me wrong. There's probably things that I do that people look at and be like, wow, you're like, I know it happens. It's like, wow, you're kind of a bad person for doing that thing. Yeah,
you're such a conservative.
Yeah. Jesus. But like, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who actually labels me as a bad person. You know what I'm saying? So
people that know you, at least.
Yeah, people that know me. And to some degree, that is like, you need, because I mean, realistically, every criticism is not valid criticism. And I have deeply ingrained in myself that if I'm not willing to accept advice from somebody, I'm not willing to accept criticism. And to some degrees, that's really good. But that only works, and that only makes you a decent person if you have a strong base that you can actually trust the opinions of, right? Because if you surround yourself by yes men and you're like, well, I don't take criticism from people, I don't take advice, and I only take advice from these people, and they're just always telling you like, should I go kick that dog? And they're like, yes sir, that is the best decision you could make today, is to go kick that puppy. At some point that mindset doesn't work, right? And there is no one answer when it comes to like hypocrisy and stuff like this. And I did wonder last time when we talked about it, if I came off, you know, the Autism podcast where it's all about autism all the time, if I came off a little too black and white in that, just because I think somebody is doing something that we could morally condemn them for doesn't necessarily mean I think they're a bad person. I think it's a stacking. Like you've played Fable, right?
Fable?
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
What the are you serious? You've never played Fable?
The amount of games I've played are limited because my income is limited.
Holy f***, you just gave me cancer. Okay, well, I'm going to buy Fable for you when it comes out, okay? I might actually save up and buy it for you, because it's great. It's a great it's a great game because in the game your choices have consequences on your character, and the more good you are, your character gets like a halo and people love him and they run up to him, and if your character's bad they stay away and there's doomy clouds. But no singular action in that game is going to get you the halo or the horns. It's a collective thing. It's an amalgamation of all your choices, and that's what people are, is an amalgamation of all your choices. So it could be that your friend is like, I should really reduce my meat consumption, and that part of them weighs negatively on them, right, as in a moral position. But it could be that each day they're opening up their house so veterans could come live in, and it's like plus 100 for their moral positivity. So realistically, at the end of the day, it's 99 positive and 1% immoral. It doesn't necessarily mean also that you just always let your friends get away with doing negative things. Who the fuck just trying? I'm in and out. Hello? Weird. It just dropped. Yeah. I think it dropped here for a second.
I caught a little bit of what you were saying on the end of your stream. Everything okay over there?
I think so. Yeah, it says we're still running. Yeah, my kilobytes and everything are all good. So, it's just a sliding scale. Just because you're doing something morally wrong in that instance doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Have I ever told you the story of... Do you know the game Undertale?
Yeah, I love Undertale.
I also like Undertale. Have I ever told you the amazing book club story that I have?
No.
Of the great Undertale lashing that I got from Ice Beam?
Okay. No. I'm curious. Do pray tell. No. Oh, stream, why are you doing this? I don't know if it's in. Oh no, it keeps dropping you. What the
I can hear you now.
Okay. Weird.
Everything... is it on my end or yours?
I have no clue because I don't see... I'll check my internet set, but I don't see it. I don't see my stream.
For my context, you just start freezing every once in a while, which is not fun. I don't think it's mine, but I could be wrong. I mean, I guess you're doing... I don't know if it's your connection. It's either your connection with Discord or my internet. It's one of those two things.
It might be mine. I think
it does keep telling... Like, I will tell you, when it pops up, it's saying that this person is having trouble connecting to Discord.
And
it's referring to you. So it might be on your end, specifically with Discord. Maybe a Discord reset would fix it.
Yeah, maybe. I can't remember the last time I actually shut down my Discord. Give me 2 seconds. I'll jump back in.
You're good.
Okay. Where are you, mouse? That. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay.
Do you want to resume like we were talking before, and then until you F again, or until one of us Fs again?
Yeah, you can, because you had an Undertale story to tell us.
Yeah. So, essentially, Ice Beans, both her and I had played Undertale, and she, working with children as a child psychologist, had seen the effect that Undertale had on the children that she was working with.
Okay, interesting.
And how much they loved the game.
Okay.
And then I had told Ice Beans that I had played through the genocide route.
Okay. Yep.
Of the game. And the backdrop to this conversation is that Will and Leonard were in a VC, and we all 5 of us. It was me, Parse, Will, Leonard, and Ice Beans, and that Will and Leonard are on a separate conversation, starting to be hyper angry with each other over a meaningless chess distinction. Which the specific distinction was whether on a high level, how much nerves come into playing chess.
Okay, interesting.
And for context, they are screaming at each other. Like, ready to rip each other's heads off, screaming at each other.
That's funny. And
all I want to do is watch this happen. And Ice Beans, who's a mod, who has heard that I played through the genocide round of Undertale, pulls me to a different VC away from the screaming match to shame me for the fact that I played through a game in a certain way and I was harming the characters. And that all I want to do is watch Leonard and William scream at each other
And she's
in
like,
the angriest I've ever seen either of them.
that's so
And
funny.
then Parse does what Parse does. And puts both of his one character in the Leonard VC so he can hear them yelling, and then another profile in our VC so he can listen to Ice Beans shame me. And then all Parse does is taunt me on the fact of how good the screaming match is in the other VC, and then I
He's
can't
like,
watch
it's just
it.
so good. You'd like it so much. It's not for you. You won't get it, but yeah, it's so good. You're just like, Ice Beans, leave me alone. Won't murder the flower anymore. I'm so sorry. That is actually pretty funny.
So I'm very familiar with games where your choices matter, and I just think of the Ice Beans thing of her shaming me for how I played Undertale, and that the true consequence of playing Undertale Genocide route was that I was not allowed to see the Leonard Williams screaming match.
Wasn't the fact you had to fight Flowery. It was, yeah, you didn't get to see the ultimate showdown.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. Well, now I want to talk about
Yeah.
Ice Beans, about the
Eventually, I
psychology of
convinced
Undertale.
Ice Beans, like, hey, you can yell at me later. Let me watch this a little.
They're like, please let me out of timeout. I just want to watch, please. No, you were going to sit here and play the peaceful playthrough.
And the funniest part of all of this is the only people that remember this are me, Parse, and Ice Beans. The people yelling at each other have no recollection of this event happening.
Just like yelled at each
And
other.
like,
No,
we'll
we're always
ask
cordial.
Will about it, and he was like, "Nah, that didn't happen."
You guys are crazy.
It is one of my favorite book club memories. But
That would be actually pretty funny. Yeah, I would imagine they got pretty heated.
it was the most heated that I've ever seen them about the thing that mattered the least.
The least, yep. That's so funny.
God.
Ice Bean said it was because it was cheating in chess. How the f do you cheat in chess?
Was it about cheating? Was this during the anal bead chess drama?
Oh, lol.
I don't remember now. It's
Butt
been
bead
too long.
cheating.
I swear it was about nerve. I think it was about cheating, but it was also how nerves, like whether. You there? Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yep. That was good.
What about doesn't matter. But it was one of the funniest things, and that's my memory when it comes to that will be eternally attached to my memory of Undertale at this point.
That's fair. That's pretty funny. Ice Beans won't like the fact that my son went full genocidal playthrough too. I think he fought every creature he could until I started playing it, and I was like, you know, you don't have to fight these characters, right? And he's like, what? You can beat the game without fighting them? I'm like, yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is I have rehabilitated Ice Beans into not hating people for that, so you will never feel the wrath of her feminism.
Oh, damn. I'm curious to see what the, because it would be a good psychology point. Be like, what is the kid gonna do? Are they are they only fighting things, or are they using more diplomatic, patient approaches? And you know what? I bet you it would differ too between boys and girls.
Okay, to move back to the point that I was you said something that I wanted to come back to.
Okay.
About how that good people can do bad actions, right?
Yep.
And I guess so for you, I'm just going to be stating it. I think I'm saying something descriptive that for you, if someone
Sure.
does a bad thing and then says that and then preaches against doing that bad thing, that it makes that bad thing worse. It's a multiplier on it in some ways.
Oh, for sure.
Even if you don't think that action itself is bad, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I might not think eating meat is wrong, but if somebody is, you know, telling others not to eat meat and like we should judge people for eating meat, and then they go eat a hamburger and they're like, don't judge me for eating a hamburger, I'd be like, well, hang on, like you are doing a bad thing. You're kind of being a bad person in this instant. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's my description of your claim. So I guess, and then you also think of what I described about Martin Luther King. You would label him as a bad person.
Only in terms of his marriage, yeah, and the family values he was preaching. Yep.
What is your internal formula for that, I guess, for determining? So you think he's a bad person in relation to this, but do you think he's a bad person overall for your understanding of him, or do you need a better understanding of him? Because we can go into a person you have a better understanding of.
I'd probably need a better understand. Once again, I joked about the being too white, but it's not really something that's taught here. So like the few things I've read about him, like I enjoy like the ideas that I think his ideas were really good, really salient, and they were ideas like, there is systems that are put in place to benefit kind of one race of people, which kind of sucks. Like we shouldn't want things like that. We should want a society that is truly based on somebody's character, not on the color of their skin, and things of that nature. Like I think that was really good, and we should seek to treat everybody, equally, regardless of what they look like or what their orientation is and things like that. But other parts of his life, I couldn't even begin to speak towards, like what he was doing in his private life that would make him a good or bad person.
I unfortunately did not do this research, but I asked Ice Beans if Canada has any interesting examples like that.
Okay.
Because I know next to nothing about the history of Canada.
Yeah.
At least politically. But we can use Hassan as a person and potentially we can try and remove the facts that he just advocates for bad things. Because I think at the time you were willing to label him as let me ask this. Were you willing to label Hassan as a bad person purely for the house thing? And
for the house thing? No, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that would make him a bad person.
Okay.
I think it might make him an asshole in that moment, but not necessarily a bad person.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
That something that at least I didn't get from our first conversation.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. Yeah.
Do you think that, for example, let's like the vegan, like we know plenty of vegans, or like in the vegan example that we illustrated before, would you label the person that reduces their meat but doesn't stop their meat consumption as a bad person, or just that they are inconsistent on this issue, or how would you describe that?
Depends on where their advocacy is from, right? Because that's the foundation. Is their advocacy we should not eat meat altogether, or is their advocacy we should reduce our meat intake?
Let's say their advocacy is their end goal is that they would like to build a society that does not allow the killing of animals for products.
Okay, and they're reducing their meat consumption?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say that person is doing morally good and is being a good person in that instance. Their actions are lining up with what they're saying, and they're taking tangible steps to effectuate the world that they want to see. Yeah, I'd say that person's probably
let's say
good.
they're not exclusively they're reducing their meat consumption, not eliminating their meat consumption. They're still engaging in animal products. They're still like where this person believes that all society should be built in a way that would remove all animal products from it.
Yeah, that's fine because they're still taking steps, right? The individual action is still there to what they say, right? Because once again, we recognize that overnight it's not going to be stopped completely. Although there's some people that will. I would say if that person was saying you need to stop eating animal products all right now, and they continue and they took small steps, I would say that their words don't align with their actions and they need to change one of the two. But if the person is like, well, I'd just like to see less animal products, or just like to see a world where animal products aren't sold at all, and they're taking steps and dietary changes to reduce that stuff, I would say they're at least working towards getting their actions in line with their words. Now, if it was like, if they did that and then let's say like 20 years down the road, they're still eating animal products and they haven't, like, there's been no other change other than that quick, like, 6 month window or immediate kind of effects, like if there's been no other actions after like a decent amount of time, I would say that person has stopped doing actions that they're trying to get their words in line with the actions, and then I would have to say they need to either reconcile their words or they need to reconcile their actions, one or the other. So
the time differential is the modifier here.
Well, I think so, because like let's say that like I'm like, man, maybe we shouldn't beat our kids, and I come to that realization that maybe beating your kids is bad, but I reduce my kids' beatings from 5 down from 10 a week, and then 10 years later I'm still beating my kid 5 times a week. Like, other than that initial action, have I really taken any actions to stop beating my kid?
To quote what Parse said earlier,
Yeah.
on relation of veganism, where he was saying this in jest, but I'm going to take it as I'm going to throw Parse under the bus and take it as a
Base,
serious
right on the
statement.
bus. Come live with me. I'm used to being down there.
When he said being a vegetarian is based, being a vegan is cringe and extreme.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the beliefs of people who are vegetarian and people that are vegan are that different from each other.
To some degree, I'd probably agree with that.
I think that there might be a more visceral reaction to consumption, like actual eating consumption, than there is to market consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, do you think all vegetarians must move to veganism to stay within their values?
No.
Even if they believe that killing animals is wrong for in
Yeah, but
general.
you don't have to. You don't have to kill a cow to make cheese. You don't have to kill a chicken to eat eggs.
Okay. Do you think vegan, like, to my understanding, vegetarianism is an editor like purely for eating things, but like vegans would be against like fur coats, for example. Um where vegetarians wouldn't necessarily have that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're not necessarily against or they view that the main source of the meat or of the animal killing they do is through their like eating, so they don't think about it as much when it comes to like leather belts or clothing or
Mm-hmm.
animal products and like animal testing and perfume.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah, they're
the
more.
treatment of animals in like lab settings for medicine and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're usually more fixated on the very quick and very noticeable harm that you're slaughtering animals for a food source, not necessarily using them as part of your apparatus, to use the products that they create. Because my guess is, fuck, I always get the two mixed. The vegetarian would probably be, most of them, my guess is probably a lot of them are okay with like drinking, eating cheese, having eggs, things of that nature. But my guess is that a vegan would be opposed to all of it because you're using that animal's resources kind of against their will. Would be my assumption, yeah. Yeah, I would say that the vegan in that instance, if they were still eating products and any animal products, yeah, I'd probably call them a hypocrite, and they're knowingly doing
vegetarian, yeah.
Yeah, the vegetarian, no, they could still engage because they're it's not their idea, their mindset isn't that using the resources from the animals is wrong. What they'd rather see is animals be used in a more humane practice that doesn't require you ending their life to get resources from them. Which, yeah, it was fine. You could still eat cheese and eggs and like that without being a hypocrite. Yeah.
Do you think, and now
Joke's on you. I don't think at all. Go ahead.
This is an abstraction.
Okay.
But let's say a life-saving medicine was tested on animals that were tortured in lab testing.
Okay.
And that this is a life-saving medicine.
Okay.
To exist within your moral framework, do you think it is a hypocrisy to accept that medicine?
For which person? For me?
For a person that believes that animal testing is wrong, that we shouldn't create products that harm animals, that we shouldn't extract their resources, but is also dying of this disease.
Yeah, I would say that'd probably be hypocritical to accept that medicine. Yeah, for sure.
Should that person act in a way that should they not accept that medicine?
If they want to live their values, yeah.
Do you think that living their values should supersede their survival?
Depends on how. Yeah, actually, yeah. If you're, I mean, we kind of see this all the time when it's like, if you're not. I mean, the thing, old adage is if you're not willing to die for it, how much do you believe in it, right? I think if that's something you truly believe, and that's a harm that is going to be perpetuated on society, and it's a harm that's being perpetuated on society, yeah, unfortunately, sometimes you have to make self-sacrifices that aren't always in your best interest if you want to live your values. Now, you could choose not to live your values, which is fine. I mean, you are going to get judged and people are going to look at you kind of weird for it, but yeah, that is a choice that you're going to have to make for yourself.
And in this case, to be clear, I'll point out an example that I find personally upsetting.
Okay.
I forget the name of the cat, but do you remember the cat that they sent into space to see if he would survive space?
Oh,
Did you hear about that?
Yep.
And that after the cat got back, they euthanized the cat anyway.
Yeah, that's super. But yep.
Like that's an example where you didn't have to euthanize the cat.
Yep.
You could. It probably wasn't even helpful to euthanize the cat.
Yep.
And like I think about the example that I just laid out in a very similar way. Where in this case, like the medicine that was created could have been created in a more ethical way.
Yep.
It just so happened that it was created in this way, and it has then tainted the creation of this medicine and its proliferation.
Yep.
I don't think I would never tell. I could never make any kind of prescription that like it is most important that you stay within your values just because you believe that this medicine should have been made in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
That you must not accept this medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And just to clarify, you do believe that since you hold a value that you should stay within your own values, that you should either have to reconsider animal testing, or die.
Yep. Yeah, if you want to live by your values, and because like at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with you and inside your own mind, right? Like that's your best friend is you. And if you can't even look your own self in the eye and like knowing what you're going to do, and you're going to take that message and it's going to eat you alive because you didn't live your values, like what's to say that any other value you hold you're not just going to drop the minute it becomes convenient to your own self-interests, right? At some point you have to make a self-sacrifice for your values if you want to see things change and things be effectuated. It's not good. It's not good in the sense of like, I'm not using that word good and like morally, like it's not an easy choice. There's sometimes hard choices aren't easy, but they're sometimes the choices you have to make. If
you were pressed with that choice, and obviously it's something to think about, do you have an idea of how you would act?
There is, when it comes to medical things, probably it depends on what the procedure is, because I'm not huge. I've already told my wife I apologize if like the doctor came to me and said you need open heart surgery tomorrow to fix your aortic valve or you're going to die. I would just die, because the whole medical thing kind of freaks me out, and the idea of somebody cracking open my ribs and digging around in my chest just turns me off completely. There is a world that I would like to hope that I am principled enough to stick to my values in that moment. And I have at times, and it has cost me job opportunities. It's cost me friendships and things of that nature. So I would hope that I would continue pushing myself forward and living the values of the things that I preach to other people, even if it's uncomfortable, it's hard for me. But I could totally see a world where I'm just like, you know what, F them animals. Like, I'm going to take this medicine. Like maybe animal testing isn't so bad. Maybe it has given me medicine that has, saved my life. It's really going to depend on what kind of mindset and values that I'm living in that moment. Kind of what I see as the more pressing and important thing. So
and to clarify, you would also like if a vegan was in the situation, right, that I laid out before, you would tell that vegan that the correct thing to do as your advice to them would be to not accept the medicine.
If they want to live their values, yeah. Yep.
Well, no, I'm not even asking if they want to live their values. I'm asking your prescription for them.
Oh, my prescription for them would be like, take the medicine. Because I think
that's what I wanted to understand.
Yeah, but my value isn't the suffering of animals is necessarily wrong. I think there's lots of ways, like, no offense, my poor dog, you can't see him right now. We joke that he's depresto doggo. If I did everything that, quote unquote, made my dog happy, I'd be walking for 14 hours a day. Right. So there's times where people might look at me and go, wow, you're a really bad pet owner. And it's like, yeah, to some degrees. Yeah, there's probably things I could do better as a pet owner. And I recognize that and I take steps towards that. But I'm a lot more of animals have certain utilities. And if you're going to give an animal a utility, you need to stick by it. And, like, this is a little cold-hearted, maybe this is a little fucked up, but I don't think that beating your dog is necessarily wrong if you're going to keep it as something to beat. If you want to keep a dog as a punching bag, I think that's pretty fucked up. I think you're probably pretty sick in the head. But if that's what if you're going to be honest and true about that utility of keeping that dog as a punching bag, okay, like, yeah, unfortunately. But I think it's kind of counterintuitive to the utility if you're going to keep something as like a pet or a best friend in that instance and you beat your dog. Like, I'm going to look at those two things very differently because of the utility that you're trying to get out of that animal, as like maybe as fucked up as that is. So
So I guess the thing that I'm gonna go back to is because I want to make sure. I want to just to you because like when you said if you wanted to live within your preaching within your values, you would tell them yes.
Yeah.
But then you would also say if your personal advice to them would say no, take the motherfucking medicine.
Yeah, because I'm gonna have different values from them. Right? Just because I have certain values and they have certain values doesn't mean the solution and the prescription that I'm going to give for both of those value sets are going to be the same.
But then at the same time, out of curiosity and just to make
please, I love curiosity. Ask away.
Would for them to be a hypocrite?
Well, I guess to some degree, yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I would tell them it wouldn't be necessarily to be a hypocrite. It'd be that I think they're wrong on what they see as utility from animals. And what I would be saying is, I wouldn't necessarily tell them to be a hypocrite, but I would tell them that their values of animals is off from where I think it should be.
And when I tell vegans that act in the way that we described before, the thing that I point out is that their values are off.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. But that's where
you do agree that in the first example that the person is acting in a hypocritical way, and they should to resolve that they should fix their values.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what I think hypocrisy is, like a good starting ground for things, because I think when you point out the hypocrisy to that person, they should start self-reflecting and be like, do I want my actions to line up with my values, or do I want my values to line up with my actions? And that's a really uncomfortable thing, because there's a lot of people that will switch their values to line up with their actions. But what I think is often the better result is usually, well, I don't even know necessarily. I don't even know, as I say it as it comes out of my mouth now, I don't know if that's always necessary. I'd have to think about that a little bit more. But there are times where I think there's a lot of people that if you really sat them down and had them think, I think they would switch either their actions or their values to more align with what they actually believe. And it's a starting point that if you point out the hypocrisy to somebody and they're not even willing to address that either their actions or their words aren't aligning, I think that then it's like a character test where it's like, oh, you're not even willing to acknowledge that you're doing something that might be hypocritical that you might have to address. My guess is there's probably other things that you're doing, either actions or word wise, that don't line up and is actually leading to bad outcomes. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's pretty much the bulk of that end of the conversation I wanted to have.
Based.
What I kind of want to get into now is just a conversation about how to do advocacy and how to interpret claims from people.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't thought about it much, so you might get a lot of like new thoughts from me. So yeah, by all means.
And that's fine. I guess very often one of the issues I have with hypocrisy claims is that they're very often used in a way to dismiss a concept.
Yes, sir.
When, as you just pointed out, making a hypocrisy claim is either reflecting a conflict of actions or represents an internal criticism of that belief system.
Okay.
But do you view actions of, because I just want to ask this because I think a lot of people look at it this way, but they don't know that they look at it this way. Do you view hypocrisy as a criticism of a systemic belief?
See, it could be. Could be.
Because, and the reason I bring that up is I'll bring it back to the Hassan example. People use the criticism of the Hassan House as a criticism of Hassan's belief system. And I just am asking you, do you think that the fact that people struggle to resist their human urges within capitalism damages, or nonetheless, does that invalidate an anti-capitalist claim?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Is like the hypocrisy more from the social norm or standing that's there, not necessarily from the misunderstanding, not necessarily from the action that the person is doing? Yeah, I mean,
do you think it
could definitely happen? Yeah, I mean, that's true of every criticism, though.
Because I think very often people take the claim, the Hassan House claim, to dismiss socialism rather than dismiss Hassan.
Oh, for sure. And I think in the same way that he takes the hypocrisy argument to dismiss actual criticism of him. I think I think it kind of works.
This is something that I pointed out. This is something that I love to say, is that in the same way that I have an issue that when people use hypocrisy to dismiss ideas, I hate when people hide their their interpersonal failings behind their ideas as well.
Yep,
Like
true.
when Hassan makes the claim that oh, the people that are attacking me for shocking my dog are Mossadist agents and and Israel propaganda. I'm like,
Yep.
you lost it.
You've lost the plot. Yep, absolutely. Yep.
I
Yep.
hate it so much.
Yep.
It doesn't even matter if it was true. It doesn't even matter if it's true.
Right?
It could be true.
It could be,
It's
but
the
it's just
stupidest
so.
thing to ever to say.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you just think I shocked my dog because you're a Zionist, huh? Hashtag Jews, and it's like, whoa, what the like? That's so weird. Like, why can't you just address what people are saying to you? Yep.
So I hate it through that angle as well. That I think that Hassan would not. If I were to give Hassan a defense, I don't even think Hassan would take the defense that I'm giving him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Nope. And I think that stems from more being unable. And this is where it's really important to have people that you trust for criticism when it comes to the actions that you're taking. Like I trust my wife quite a bit that if she tells me I'm up, I'm probably up. And if she's telling me I'm being okay, I'm very safe to assume that what she's telling me is legitimate. But what ends up happening is people like that, they don't actually have that. And so they, instead of actually dealing with criticism, they just kind of double down in their own little world. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And the thing that I got upset by, as a person that at the time, and this is a symptom of Hassan and his unique advocacy,
Yeah.
and this is something that I talked about with Ice Beans, is that Hassan is not in favor of anything, which
Oh,
he
yep.
is. He has prescriptions, but his prescriptions are born out of being against the systems that exist currently. They're in opposition. I don't view him as like even being in favor of socialism because he doesn't really talk about it that much. I don't know. He could be. I'm not saying he isn't.
Yep.
But his advocacy isn't at the very minimum. He just says socialism cool, and then I've never heard him talk about what socialism actually looks like or what his advocacy actually looks like.
Yep.
So that's very purposeful because what Hassan wishes to be is a vector of anger, not an advocate.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's a vessel. It's an empty. It's so fascinating because Donald Trump does the same thing. You become a vessel for everything that the person wants, and it doesn't actually require you to do anything. It's super impressive, honestly.
Yeah, I think I think the Hassan case is very, very interesting. So it's like at the time, you can kind of put your beliefs on this person.
Yep.
So like back in 2020 or 2021 when we originally had this conversation, I would fully admit that I thought that Hassan was more aligned with my beliefs than I am understanding now.
Yep.
Once again, I think that was before he did a lot of his really bad stuff.
Yep.
But at the time, I think that's a fair understanding of the situation.
Yeah. Oh, I'd agree. Yep.
And a thing that I was very, very upset by at the time that actually fueled our original conversation is I was very, very tired of my ideology being dismissed because Hassan had a house.
Oh, yep. That's fair. I could understand that, getting criticism from other people online. It's like, no, you're not understanding me. You just socialism. It was when no house, and then yeah.
So that was, even if whether I had to disown or agree with Hassan in any capacity as a person who identified as a leftist.
Yep.
The reason that I was going around yelling I didn't yell at you. I think we actually had a pretty good conversation. But the reason that we had that conversation was because I was upset with the dismissal of Hassan in general, because the important thing is that dismissal has been a thing and is a historic thing throughout history that will be thrown at any person.
Oh, for sure.
Especially any politician.
Yep.
That advocates leftward. Like, I don't think that my understanding, I think we've talked about like the arguments in favor or against like climate change arguments of that you should be taking interpersonal things to change climate change.
Yeah.
But do you view the complaints that, like, for example, that Bernie Sanders as a politician has to fly private and as an older man as a valid criticism of him that he shouldn't be hurting the environment?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. Like, when you mean fly private, you mean like a private jet type deal?
People even criticized him for flying first class.
Oh, really? I'd have no problem. I have no problem with that.
But let's say I think Al Gore is the example that did fly private, have his own private jet.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that example specifically?
Yeah, the Al Gore, like Bernie Sanders, to my knowledge, he's never been out like giving presentations on how bad it is that we're destroying his. Once again, this is going to be totally out of my ass because I don't know a ton of his stance, but my guess is is that humans are driving climate change. We need to reduce our CO2 emissions. There's a lot of places it comes from, and we need to find places to reduce it at time, like when you have the best of your ability to kind of reduce it through things like taxes or, you know, better, maybe more environmentally friendly ways like cars and shit like that, you know, the bigger polluters. My guess is Bernie Sanders probably has never said that we need to eliminate all forms of CO2 production, or if you're flying private, you're destroying the environment or like that. Like my guess is he's probably never taken a stance like that. So I probably think it would be okay. But somebody like Al Gore, who has like staunchly argued against like how humans are driving climate change and how all these things are really bad. And yeah, I'd probably look a little bit different between the two. Flying privately, I probably wouldn't care so much about Bernie Sanders flying private or in a jet to himself as I would Al Gore doing the exact same thing. Yeah.
And to be clear, Bernie Sanders was a big proponent of the Green New Deal, which was specific, which it does refer to this. So now I don't think, and this might have been a symptom of the 2000s, because I think this is very often a symptom of newer movements.
That's
Even
fair.
though, like, for example, veganism is not a newer movement. It's modern retelling is very new, or at least it's a very new blood. Is that I think it's a very modern thing for newer movements to engage in shame campaigns and to attack personal actions rather than to attack systems.
For sure.
And I think that's also a symptom of something that you see with as Al Gore is very much a person that would talk about the issue of climate change and how it was brought about. I think that it is a symptom of newer movements that they go the route of personal responsibility and shaming. That might be a culture problem as well. But that's not really directly a thing. So I'm sure Al Gore did assuming Al Gore did do some like interpersonal shaming of you should be doing these actions to help the environment rather than advocating for policy. And then he did do that. That does probably sour me a little bit. But I guess the reason I brought this up is, do you think that should sour advocacy or appreciation for the message itself?
No, I don't think so. No, I think it should sour those people as leaders, but I don't think the message itself should be soured. Now, I understand that, unfortunately, you know, as once again have labeled this the Autism podcast, I think there's a lot of people that get autistically intertwined with the message and the person giving the message. And, you know, unfortunately, our society, our humans being what they are, a lot of the times we see the two intertwixt with each other, that they just can't separate. But no, I think very much so that you should be able, and this is sometimes my criticism, people that they can't hear what I'm saying just because I'm the one saying it, that if they were to hear it from somebody else, they would agree. That frustrates the fuck out of me. You should be able to hear my message irrespective of who's saying it, but that doesn't mean that I expect you to not be as favorable or not be as leery on the message being said when it is from somebody that you don't necessarily trust or is doing those things. You know, my dream goal, my dream society would be, it wouldn't matter who's saying it. It would just matter that it's reaching somebody's ears. But I know that's just not the case with humans. So I have to unfortunately advocate that your messenger is as strong as your message. Unfortunately.
Would you go so far as I would to say that people that use hypocrisy claims to dismiss movements are doing a harm?
Only if that's the only thing that they're using to dismiss the claim. Because realistically, I could make the claim that Al Gore is a little bit of a hypocrite, but I could still give understanding to the message as a whole. Because if you have somebody, let's say somebody comes to you and goes, "Oh, I think climate change is bullshit because Al Gore is a hypocrite," that person isn't worth taking seriously. And neither is that claim of hypocrisy, because they're not contending with the idea. They're using it as a deflection point so they don't have to contend.
One of the problems with claims of hypocrisy is this thing that Parse has talked about.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the shocking dog collar meme is that Parse started saying, and I truly believe in this, partially because I already don't like Hassan.
Yep.
Is because it doesn't matter if Hassan shocked his dog or not. It's funny that he did that, whether he did or not, and I'm going to spread the memes on it.
Honestly, you know, I'll give a hot take with this Hassan thing. He should just own that he shocked the dog. Honestly, he should have just owned and be like, "Yep, I use a shock collar on my dog. Boom, done right there."
Yeah.
Because I don't know what like other than legitimately being a contrarian, where people on the internet are saying that he's done something bad. Other than that, I don't know what value in his own life he'd be protecting. When it came, other than he was fearful that there were people in his audience that would look disfavorable to that. That's the only. Because realistically, you should just own it. Be like, yeah, I shock my dog. That's how I train them. Like I've used shock collars before. I've tested them on dogs before I've used them. I had one real bad dog that, honestly, God, I'd have to fist fight that dog a couple of times. It was so bad. Put a shock collar on her. We trained her with the shock and the pinch a little bit, not to the point where she's bleeding. And I tested the shock collar on myself. It can be an effective way of training a dog. You just have to do it responsibly. So I don't know what he would. I don't know. I just
don't know if everyone would.
That's
subscribe
fine
with that idea, especially in Hassan's audience.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not. And that's where I would say the grifting comes in, is he wasn't. Yeah.
I am of the belief now, based on his actions. Once again, I don't need to say that Hassan's not a bad person. Hassan is a bad person. I think the reason that the claim is interesting, though, is because these kind of claims of acting hypocritically can spread like wildfire, right?
Yeah. But
they are widely spread things to they are widely spread things to dismiss thoughts.
Sure.
And are usually the thing that is first spread about a person to dismiss a movement. Like in the example of the MLK, the only thing that was spread against the main message that was spread against him was this specifically. To try and dismiss the civil rights movement. And it seems like throughout leftism advocacy throughout history, it's always been pointing out how leftists have done a capitalism within a capitalism, right? And then, especially when we get in issues of climate change, plenty of people use like interpersonal things to dismiss them. Like, I'm pretty sure most of the if people know anything about Al Gore, it's the private jet meme in America. It's that they're dismissing him because purely for the way that he acted. And really? I think you and I can both agree that's dangerous to dismiss what someone's saying based on their personal actions alone. I think that's what you said earlier.
Not necessarily dangerous. If it's their only criticism of them, that person isn't worth taking seriously. But that should be like, if I said the sword that they're using is only as sharp as you allow it to be. If somebody comes to you and says, "Wow, I really don't like Al Gore because he's a hypocrite," if your first question is, "Oh, so if he wasn't a hypocrite, you would agree that climate change is an issue?" If that person says no, the hypocrisy doesn't matter, and you realistically should just move on from it and not allow them to use that as a criticism and try to get them to make another valid criticism, right? Because if somebody was to go, "Wow, I think I really don't I don't like the fact that Al Gore was a hypocrite," and you go, "Oh, okay, but you still believe in climate change without Al Gore being a hypocrite?" If they say, "Well, yeah, I do," and it's like, okay, well then I can understand that why you're upset that somebody that was advocating for so strongly for climate change, is, I can understand why you're upset with them being a hypocrite in that instance, but it's good that you still understand the message. That person is far more is worth taking seriously, as opposed to the person that uses the hypocrisy as an argument against something and has no other basis for disagreement other than that hypocrisy, if that makes sense.
Oh, I agree that person's far more worthy of taking seriously. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, given the climate that we're in America, we have to work with people that we don't take seriously.
No, for sure. And I think to some degree, unfortunately, we've allowed them to be like that, because when somebody gives you the criticism argument of we're just using Al Gore, instead of actually trying to pin that down on their climate change denialism, you kind of get sidetracked with arguing about the hypocrisy because it feels like a visceral thing to defend. But if you can instead sit down and find out why they're fixating on the hypocrisy, I think moving forward, it makes a much better conversation. Because if if they don't believe the thing just solely based off the hypocrisy, that person's an idiot. Right, because they can't divorce the two, and then trying to defend the hypocrisy or dealing with the hypocrisy point is pointless because it's not. Have you ever discussed something with somebody and they give you a reason for something, and then once you debunk that, they give you another reason for the exact same thing you were just talking about?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I call them like first precursors to something, but usually the first precursor, if their stance doesn't change from that, the first precursor was a bullshit. It was bullshit, and all they're going to do with the second precursor is feed you bullshit, right? So if you deal with somebody and they have an issue with Al Gore being a hypocrite, and you're able to address and they're able to understand and they're able to still move forward with maybe some things that they don't necessarily they look at climate change and they don't necessarily agree with, that's going to be a good conversation. You're going to be able to push them on things. But if they refuse to then engage with the other points, like the second precursor in that conversation, they were just using the hypocrisy as hopefully a distraction point, basically hoping that you yourself would get fixated in the conversation about this. I think conservative propaganda works really well this way, and I hear it all the time, and it drives me nuts. I think the hypocrisy is the same thing. It just depends on where the other person is willing to move in the conversation.
Yeah, and something I will tell you about Americans in general, and this is just how things work, is that people that and this is true of all people.
Mm-hmm.
My point of reference is Americans, is like when it comes to leftists like Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I would talk to my friend, and if I even like, I would ask them, "What do you think about Bernie Sanders?" And they would say, "Well, I hate how he owns stuff." I'm gonna say that.
Really?
I'm being hyperbolic. They hate how they think that he tells them he's gonna tax all their stuff away, but then he owns 2 houses because he inherited one from his family.
Okay.
And he got a bunch of money from a book.
Yeah.
That is the number one thing. Like, if I went to people in my hometown, if I asked about him, what I would hear.
Damn. Idiots.
And when I address ideas like this,
yeah,
if I went up to them and said, "Well, you still believe in like taxing the rich?" they would say no. They would reject you on all of those claims, but they have used the hypocrisy claim to write this thought process out of their mind, rather than address it in any meaningful capacity. And I agree that is something that I have to work on and have an interpersonal conversation with them, which I do with people, with projects that I care about. When I deem that this is a person that first I can do this safely with, and then secondly that I can do all the other stuff with. I think that as a general teaching mechanism,
mm-hmm.
I think the most important thing to teach, and this might just be where we disagree, is where you say that hypocrisy is going to be a good starting point.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it can be useful, but I think it might come with an equal amount, if not more, dangers than otherwise, because I think that hypocrisy claims lead to dismissing someone out of mind rather than thinking about them critically.
Okay, interesting. I actually had the exact opposite thought. I think I was just about to say, I think actually the hypocrisy for them could be a great jumping off point to why, like, understanding maybe why they see it as hypocritical, because I think the hypocrisy from them is stemming not necessarily from an actual value set that is different from what they think is, but I think the hypocrisy comes from a misunderstanding rather than an actual value point that Bernie Sanders has. So I think being like, oh, why do you think he's a hypocrite? And it's like, well, he made money from a book. I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you think Bernie Sanders believes that would somehow make that a hypocrite? Well, right there, I guarantee you most of your friends would not be able to defend it right there. Like it would go to some like dismissive bullshit like, oh, well, socialism, you're not supposed to own it. Like, and then it's just like, it's misunderstanding built on misunderstanding built on misunderstanding. But what they're doing is they're focusing on the hypocrisy as a way to not combat all the other misunderstandings that are standing on that one claim.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But they're using it in that capacity. But I think that the fact, at least what I've dealt with
Yeah.
in my, and this is anecdotal. I think
Oh
that
yeah,
you'll
for sure.
find this
Yeah.
widespread.
Yeah.
But my impressions of this is that it is purely used to like I think that hypocrisy claims are purely used to dismiss and not really engage with the point.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I agree with you.
So when these claims are made, I think that they can be a very dangerous thing as a jumping off point. And that I think that the point of like opposition media from like conservatives is to get these messages out as soon as possible so they can just reaffirm the people's existing biases and then not have to question it.
Okay.
And then I agree that I could do this slow process of talking with them. And like I have. Like that's the important thing is I have done it with my interpersonal friends. I've been
Yeah.
telling ice beams about my progress with a friend of mine back home in Florida, where I am finally managing to get her off of love of Trump.
Okay. Based. Okay. I guess it's like
And
some.
it took me 8 years. It took me 8 years to do it.
Yeah. Leaving
Uh,
cults is hard.
did it take me? No, it took me. Yeah, it took me 8 years. It took me 8 years to do it, and that my concern, and then I think that more often than not, I don't hear many independent voices. I don't hear people that look at figures, and this is just a symptom of psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and think, oh, this is a thought leader. I'm going to take ideas from them. I
It
in
just kind
modern
of
day, I see,
happens.
oh, this is my god.
Yeah.
Destiny is my god. Hassan is my god. Bernie Sanders is my god. Trump is my god. Right? That's the equivalent that I see.
Okay.
I don't see. Hey, maybe Trump. Like, I'm gonna use Trump for the funny example.
Okay.
Hey, Trump might have some good ideas. I don't believe in everything that he says. They might say that, but they do kind of. They are of the belief that Trump is essentially their version of God.
Yeah, it's lip service
Uh,
to not combat the really uncomfortable truth that they do actually see him as a god and as a thought leader type
yeah,
deal. Yeah.
and something that I would just advocate for, and I think we would both agree on this, is a very important thing is that if you're criticizing people and you want to remain in the I'm going to call it the drama slop sphere
Mm-hmm.
of like your what you want to do is you want to exist to morally condemn others
Mm-hmm.
uh and just talk about it, which is a fine thing to do. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. uh but I think that gets dangerous if you engage in that exact same behavior and you claim that you're doing political advocacy.
Okay, when you say you, do you mean me or just people in general?
Sorry, could you say that again?
When you say we use the word you, are you just talking people in general or are you specifically meaning
i'm
me?
I'm talking people in general because
Oh,
I
okay.
don't view yeah I'm talking people in general.
Okay. Yeah, to some degree. I guess like I'm really curious. Like you use the term like I think addressing the hypocrisy is dangerous. What is it like? I'm not really fully understanding, and I don't know if it's whether it's a me thing or a you thing. What you mean when it's dangerous to confront the hypocrisy that they're laying in front of you?
I don't think. Okay, let me. If I said that, I don't think it's dangerous. I don't think it's a dangerous thing to confront. I think like if you're being addressed with hypocrisy concerns, you should address them.
Okay.
I think they're a dangerous thing to spread.
Oh, you like
That
mean spread like, oh, look at this person, they're being hypocrite for whatever
correct.
reason. Okay.
I just from a purely like a game theory.
Oh
Like
yeah, I
if
mean
I view politics as a game standpoint.
spread your enemies or your allies' weaknesses to your enemies. Yeah, I would agree with that one. Yep.
Um, and when I look at Hassan,
Mm-hmm.
and I very much had this image of the left that I wanted to create. That I still very much believe this. That I think that there's a lot more agreement among the left and liberals than uh, either our political establishment or our social media spaces would like to agree with.
Of course. Yep.
I think they want to label each other as enemies and then be able to farm content or farm engagement or make themselves feel better about their treatment of this outgroup rather than doing the correct thing, which is we need to move forward. We need
Mm.
to we agree on that these problems exist and we need to find a way to work together on them rather than the segmenting, which both sides do.
For sure.
And then at the time of the house claim,
mhm,
I thought it was very annoying because I viewed Hassan, which is an incorrect view of Hassan, that he was spreading a general progressivism, uh, and he was making positive claims in favor of progressivism, and he was convincing people to do progressivism. So when it was mostly liberals, conservatives did this too, but when it was mostly liberals attacking him on the house thing, to me, it felt very off because we may view this person as our enemy, and I
mhm,
think that's largely fueled by the beef between DGG and Hassan, which I think is all something that we can agree on is stupid.
mhm.
Uh, Going to battle for your streamer daddy god is a bad thing. uh, at the time, I had this reflexive, and I've had to recognize this now. I had this reflexive defense because not because I wanted to defend Hassan, but I wanted to defend this idea of working together.
Okay.
And I don't know if, like, as a person at that time, because there were many, many Hassan House debates, and
Mhm,
these came up very, very often, and these were the main things to attack members of the left because
mhm,
they weren't excising this person, who who, like, to the leftist credit, viewed him as doing reasonable advocacy, and that there may have been some dissenting opinions, but that's okay, and we need to move in this direction, and we have a coalition to build, right?
mhm.
Because that's always the conversation of a coalition. How much badness do you accept?
Yep. Well,
Uh,
it's not even so much badness do you accept, it's are these leaders worth having as your leaders? I think is kind of what
yeah,
it boils down to. Yeah.
but the reason that the reason that there's that question is because, like, if this is a bad leader, because of their leading by poor example, should we remove them? Which is the conversation, and then I think that sometimes, I think you and I would both agree, you have to accept bad leaders.
Not necessarily on the thing they're leading of. Right? Like they're one it no, it's not that black or white. You don't always have to. It's
No,
not. Well,
I'm not. Yeah, let me
I
rephrase. I'm not
no,
saying
you're
you
not saying
always have
always.
to accept bad leaders. I'm
No,
saying
I missed
sometimes
that.
you
That
do.
was a me part. That was a misconstrued. Sure, you sometimes have to accept bad leaders, but the thing then becomes like you have to be okay within a movement having certain subsections of your movement question whether or not the leader that is in front of you is actually worth having in front of you. And sometimes it is going to stem from things that people see as being hypocritical of them. Right. And that's not
I think that
necessarily
is a yeah.
because I would actually argue the biggest thing with Hassan was the fact that any time where somebody was like, well, hang on, like it kind of seems like you're not really living your values. There was no link between actually understanding where people were saying versus like the criticism that's being laid in front of them. It was almost an unwillingness to hear out what people were saying, and that is what probably fueled the debates more than anything, right? Like the underlying thing might have been the house and how should people interpret it, how should we look at Hassan, but realistically if he would have come on and been like, yeah guys, like I understand that you're seeing this as a little bit of a hypocritical moment, but in reality I'm not advocating that you shouldn't own a house or you shouldn't use your wealth to better your life. What I'm saying is that in the moments that you have wealth, you should be seeking to maximize the wealth for those around you type deal, right? Because I think in that instance, I don't think a lot of the debate panels would have happened. I think it would have been a much different conversation that people. Now, of course, you're still going to have your detractors, and yeah, you don't necessarily have to focus on them. Unfortunately, they're always going to exist. You're always going to have those people within a movement. But it's just, it really depends on how a leader engages with those criticisms, right? And there are times where you have those criticisms of the leader, you recognize that, yeah, okay, they are still a good leader, they can still do things effectively. But there are times where if your leader can't take criticism like that, how the fuck are they going to take other criticism? In times where they might even be more wrong, or it might be more egregious and in people's face, and it could end up damaging the movement in that moment. So,
Well, my first point is that I think the reason the Hassan House thing was such a common thing was because of fueled opposition. Personally, I don't necessarily think it was his reaction to it.
Do you think if Hassan's reaction would have been different, where he just kind of would have owned it, the panels would have been the same?
I do kind of I agree with you that I think it would have been better for Hassan.
Oh. Well, I just mean better for the space in general. Do you think people would have had panels to the same degree they did if he just owned it? And
yes.
Oh, okay. I totally disagree. I think people sometimes denial ends up fueling some of these things that people engage with, because then it's more in your face.
Well, let me rephrase. I think that it still would have happened. I think that there's a motivated reason for it to happen that goes beyond what Hassan actually believes.
Yeah, but would it be less? Because I agree it would still happen. Those attractors are still going to be there.
It could have been lessened, and like there could have been like the conversation could have been diminished.
Mm-hmm.
But that extends to the point of in my view, and you can agree with me or disagree with me,
mm-hmm.
there was a movement by a person to disenfranchise this political thought process.
Okay. In what capacity?
That was created, and I think that once again, like we've had, Al Gore has addressed the private jet claims.
Well, hang on. To what capacity? Like, what do you mean when you say that? Because I don't fully understand.
Yeah, I don't remember fully either. I'm sure he's he's said that the thing that we need, like he's refocused the conversation that we need to focus on like the actual carbon emitters and not just
no, not Al Gore, Hassan. Like Hassan.
Yeah, you said
you said it was a controlled opposition. I don't understand what you're laying out in front of me.
Let me rephrase if I can. It's just that I think that it was motivated. I think the primary motivator was streamer beef rather than a principled rejection. I think that it was that people jumped on the claim because they viewed it as a way to tear down Hassan rather than as a actual criticism.
Okay, why were they wanting to tear down Hassan?
Because of the beef between their streamer daddy gods.
Okay, so just come out and say it. So you're saying Destiny latched onto it, and that's why the panels took place. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That is my I wasn't trying to dance around the fact that it's Destiny. It's definitely Destiny.
I guess I would largely disagree, because I think if Hassan would have come out and owned it and been honest and forthcoming and better explained it, I don't think the beef would have been there to the same degree. I don't think those panels would have been anywhere near like they were. I would probably agree with you to some degree that it was, maybe beefs and stuff like that between just people that have one disagreement on one side and agreement on the other side. But once again, if he just would have owned it and dealt with it a lot better and, addressed a lot of the criticisms that people were making, I don't think it would have been as big a thing as it.
Well, let me cite, and you can say that Vosh did a poor job of this, right?
Okay.
But Vosh did come out in defense of the Hassan house thing.
Okay.
And he did say, like, he expressly said that Hassan buying a house is not bad within our systemic beliefs. That is something that he did state. And we're not advocating. He said other things, but he did say that this thing is not bad within our systemic beliefs
of socialism,
and that we're not advocating for you not to use your personal wealth.
Okay.
And then the conversation continued to happen.
Well, that's because that's not the person that the criticism is being laid to. Hassan is driving the train.
I can't use Hassan because he didn't do it. I can use this other example.
Well, that's exactly my point, though, is that he didn't do it. And I'm saying that if he would have been the one that made those statements that Vosh made, I think it would have been a lot different. I think it would have been a lot different reception from the audiences in general, because that's part of that power is the person ignoring the criticism. That's what gives part of the criticism the power, is ignoring the degree. And unfortunately, Vosh would have never been able to stop that train, because he is not the one that is having the criticism laid upon his feet. Right? Because if there's a criticism of me and somebody comes forth and makes that criticism, it is going to be a lot different if I address that criticism head on than if you address that criticism head on for me. One actually makes it look like it's like, oh, well, this person can make the defense of why it's okay that you did this thing. Why the f can't you? Right? It actually speaks even more to the denial that they're doing, as opposed to me coming out, owning it, and nobody having to go to bat for me. Right? Do you recognize the difference between those two?
I agree with you that it makes the person look weak. I don't know if I see that the panel space would have moved on it, given how I saw even when Vosh said everything that
yeah, but it's not his criticism.
You said,
but it's not his criticism.
I'm just remembering the reactions that I saw to people disagreeing with that if you are like the disagreement
Yes.
that happened was that you are a socialist, you have to do this.
Well, those criticisms aren't valid. I think the difference, like once
I
again,
agree.
I agree, but once again, it's a lot different if you take self accountability for the criticism at you versus you denying the criticism against you, and then somebody better articulating against the criticism against you. Those two are going to come across solely differently to people, and in their headspace and in the space in general. Those are two vastly. Those are worlds apart.
I don't know if like to the liberal space that existed at that point, whether they would have not just said the exact same thing when they had this huge anger towards Vosh at that point.
Well, what was said towards Vosh? Do you remember?
It was that it was essentially the claim that if you are a socialist and if you espouse socialist beliefs, you cannot separate yourself from the mechanisms of capitalism. You must not be rich. You must not live within. You must not use your resources, even if you don't personally. Like, even if both Hassan did say that wealth was bad, but
okay, well then that's the thing. Like right there once again is you've laid the advocacy foundation. You have to deal with the hypocrisy, and then at that point when you're dealing with the criticism, you either need to speak to your audience and be like, listen guys, yeah, you know what, it did go against my values. I probably shouldn't have purchased such an expensive house. Maybe next time I'll work to maybe get a different house or a different style of housing that isn't so authenticiously capitalist, right? Because there was different ways that he could have gone about that. Or
I agree with you that there were different ways.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
Or you need to explain to your to your audience that the value that you've held has changed, and then in which case, once again, all the power from that criticism is going to disappear because you've addressed the inconsistencies. The fact that Hassan can't himself address the inconsistencies is what gives fuel to that fire of inconsistency. Whereas if he would have been able to address it, put out the fire, there's not as much fuel for people to run rampant on it with panels. But because he doesn't do that, it actually it speaks more volumes to everything. And all it does when Vosh tries to defend, because I'd agree with Vosh, he's probably correct in that, is like, no, you can use your wealth. You're gaining wealth out of society. You're going to use it. You're spending money. You're as long as you're doing other things that advocacy is not necessarily the house that's a bad thing under socialism. It's when you preach out against wealth and then you flaunt your wealth type deal. That is the real hypocrisy thing there. It's just he could never get ahead of that train in a way that would meaningfully change the course of those discussions because the criticism isn't being levied against him. It has to come from the original party.
I don't know because I think this was something that very uniquely you distinguished.
Probably.
Because remember, you were very important, that you emphasized this very importantly in our first conversation.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much the other people in the space actually cared about the fact that he was anti-flaunting wealth.
And they might not, but but once again, it could be about any I think you're missing the forest a little bit for the trees here. The idea that the criticism.
I understand exactly what you said. I'm okay. Let me.
Restate it to me.
I agree with you that if Hassan had personally addressed the criticisms, that at very minimum the response to him would have been very differently than him shrugging off the criticisms, ignoring them, and then moving past it.
Yeah,
that would have. I agree with that sentiment.
And then you recognize that there's nothing that somebody else could do to necessarily quell that fire because the criticism isn't about them; it's about somebody else.
I just don't know if there was. I agree with you that Vosh couldn't solve it. I don't know. The thing is, I don't know if I agree with you if Hassan could have quelled the fire.
Okay, well, here's an interesting thought experiment. If Hassan would have come out, owned the criticism, been honest, changed either his actions or his words to better align with the criticism at him, do you think there would have been as much fuel for DGG to do what they did?
Yes, or at least I don't. At least in the case of DGG, I've seen them very often try and turn a mountain they try and make a mountain out of a molehill.
They can, but would they have had as much fuel to do so? Or would they had to try to find something else? Or would they have to try to something?
They wouldn't have had as much fuel.
Yeah.
If Hassan had come out, which he might have actually done, and it might have sounded weak, but I think Hassan has said at least sometimes that Hassan has said socialism when house memes. I think he did make those memes.
Mm-hmm.
And and you could view that as walking back of he got wealthy, so now he doesn't view wealth flaunting as that bad, which is true.
Unfortunately, yep.
But I do think he did do that. Mm-hmm. To be fair, he did say that, like, hey, I don't view my actions as that bad because it's about a systematic problem. I think he did say that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very weak response. Um, but he did do the thing. I think eventually he did do the thing that you're describing that he should have done,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly. And I might want to go back. Maybe I need to send a scroller through and find VODs from 5 years ago and see what he actually said about this.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if I agree it would, like, he could have handled it better.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to 100% agree on that point.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know because I think the opposition to him was not it was not sincere is my problem with it.
I would agree
I
with
don't think the Mhm.
I would probably agree that there probably was a good chunk of bad faith actors, but that doesn't mean, like, just because bad faith actors exist doesn't mean their criticisms are invalid. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you.
Okay. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we get fixated on what the bad actors are saying and we ignore the actual criticisms that they're laying at our feet that are valid, but just because it's coming from somebody who, you know, for all intents and purposes is invalid at that time, I think we'll often dismiss some of the criticisms just because it's like, well, that person's bad faith. And it's like, yeah, well, I understand, but you should still be able to know. It's like we were talking about the idea from the movement, right? Like, you should still be able to detach the criticism from the person making it and know whether or not the criticism being made is legit or not.
If you see that, and I think you would agree, the main source of criticism on this was not an internal criticism, where I think that hypocrisy claims should come from, right? I think when hypocrisy claims are at their healthiest, they're an internal critique of your leaders, right?
Like, from the movement itself?
Yes.
Yes and no, because there are times where your movement might be okay with something, but in order to grow it, the outside people aren't okay with something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think specifically in this case though, and I think rightfully so. At this point, I think as if I was personally Hassan, I
Mm-hmm.
would write off DGG as like a source of people to coalesce with, just as Destiny has done. And I think at that point, both of them would have done that as well. Would you agree with that claim?
Like, they shouldn't interact with them type deal?
Oh, they should interact, but you shouldn't be appealing your message in your audience specifically to try and pull these voters into this group of people into your audience, but you should kind of be searching for broader appeal.
I don't know if you should close off yourself like that, because I would hope that there's still a universe where, regardless of who's saying the message, is that you should still be able to resonate if it's a good message. I think if they're gonna kind of put up those kind of barriered walls, I think those are really easy to close everybody off for you could find any reason to close somebody off from your movement. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're right in doing so.
Well, something that Ice Beans and I talk about occasionally is it's important on who you tailor your message to.
Yeah, of course.
Because as a movement, you tailor your message to different people.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just looking for should Hassan be tailoring his message to DGG, and should Destiny be tailoring his message to Hassan?
Yeah, to some degree, I would say that both of them. Yeah, for sure. With the people within those audiences, unfortunately, yeah. Even if they're like people that you don't necessarily like, you should still, to some degree, those people should be able to hear you and at least what you're saying. Not to say that, because like you can't do that perfectly, because you and I could have this conversation. I could be really chill, and somebody could listen in and be like, "Wow, Ryan was a real in that conversation. Like, holy shit, I can't believe he was like that." I'm probably not going to reach that person in that moment, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be like, all right, I'm going to keep these people in mind when I'm giving my message. No, you should still try to appeal to as many people as you can within your message, even if you're going to get people that misunderstand you.
Well, I don't have a problem with, for example, like, I think what Hassan does specifically, and I think a lot of lefties do this, is they tailor their message specifically to people that have an upset feeling with the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
They feel like their voices aren't being represented, and that they need someone to kind of coalesce their feelings around.
Yep.
And that I think focusing in on that message specifically And zeroing on it it can be. I think it's been mostly used poorly, but can be a productive message.
It can. It can also be a really destructive message, only because it could be that, because like I don't know about you, but I've been gone for a couple of years now. I listening to myself now and listening to some of my old stuff is like, damn, there's a lot of things that I've changed about myself that I'm really happy that I've kind of changed. But the reality is, if I could travel back in time and hear the internal thoughts that I was giving myself, there was probably a lot of times where I thought what I was doing was correct and the justification was cool, and I was, everything I thought I was doing was true and based, type deal. We're really good at fooling ourselves, like unbelievably good. It's crazy to the degree of which we can fool ourselves for necessarily having message where it makes you feel that way doesn't necessarily mean that that's a fair or balanced or based message that you should be pushing on to people.
Oh yeah, and I think, well, two things. I think a message can be good or bad regardless of who you're advocating that message to.
Yep.
And then secondly, I think what you just said can be illustrated by the fact that we're having this conversation now and that we're disagreeing with our previous held beliefs anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So like when you ask me like, oh, should DGG or Hassan totally cut themselves off? Like, no. But would it take like the world's greatest building crew to build a bridge between those two? Yeah, absolutely. Because there is like, the bridges just haven't been burned. We've nuked the surrounding area, and the mountains that could no longer connect to each other are totally gone. And we could sit all day and point thumbs, but I could, point fingers, but I could point fingers at TGG. I could point fingers at Hassan. Both times they could have taken, better actions to effectuate a better outcome. But it's just, you kind of layer. So that's why when it's like, oh, well, do you think they should cut each other off? And it's like, well, not necessarily. I would like to think that we could all at some point change the way
that might
we
have
see
been a
things.
mistake of mine. I wasn't trying to say should we cut them off. It's more talking about the goal of our advocacy. I'm not saying that if you're DGG you should be banned from a community. I'm saying that, like, should we focus our message on appealing to these groups, not removing them.
Yeah, to some degree, because I think like if you truly believe, unfortunately, if you truly believe what Hassan is doing is destructive to the people around him and in his orbit, if you have the belief that you can pull some of those people out and give them better ways to be, yeah, you probably should to some degree tailor your message to those people. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly to Hassan's audience, but it might be a little more vague, like, oh, I know that people fall into political extremism. How do we deal with political extremism, and tailing maybe messages to a more politically extreme nature. So,
well, no, I'm talking about specifically, like, should Destiny like focus in on the, because I think the way that I view advocacy and creators and niche is that we all appeal to different people.
For sure.
And that we're good at, and that people are good at doing different things.
Yep.
So, like, if I have a person over here that's really good at pulling Hassan viewers over to what my beliefs are, that's great. That doesn't mean that needs to be my job.
Yep.
Of doing that. I'm glad that there's another portion of our coalition that's doing that.
Yep.
But I think that for my voice specifically, and other people's voices, that it's best spent doing what we're best at doing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of my prescription on it. Not that we should, like, reject people. Like, if a Hassan viewer came to Destiny and said, "Hey, I'm having some thoughts," like, if I would call Destiny an asshole if he kicked him in the stomach and said, "Get the fuck out of here, you fucking
I would agree. Yep. No, for sure. Yeah. And I think, like, but I think to some degree our biggest focus at the end of the day should be trying to communicate with as many people as we can. And you're right. I'm probably not going to reach 90% of Hassan's audience. A, I'm just not that big. And B, I'm pretty sure most of the messages or the ways I think about things would not resonate with people like that because they're not in the right headspace. But that wouldn't mean that I necessarily alter my message or the way I act just to capture those people. But it's with the understanding that there's a potential to catch those people if I don't shut them out completely, and as long as I leave room to have that communication when both of us are in a state of mind to communicate with each other.
Okay, really quickly, Ice Beans is saying that we're being too chill and nice with each other.
I know we're never gonna get big viewer numbers like this. I don't know what to tell you, Ice Beans. Okay.
So really quickly, just for this little piece parse, you can get the clip of this. I think Fuck you, liberal. You are a horrible
classic.
person. You should go die
Excuse
and
you, sir.
suffer.
Excuse you, sir. I'm a conservative, as labeled them last night. Okay. I like I said, I had my PPC flag in the Amazon cart, and I was really on the fence. But after being told last night I'm a conservative, that's it.
How dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you, Mr. Critical Canadian, vote for Trump as a conservative? You are terrible, and you should.
PP is actually my hero. I have a tattoo of him right next to my balls, so that every time I take a piss, I'm like, yes, my supreme leader. Thank you. I love you.
How dare you exist? You are hypocritical for existing and terrible. Yeah. The CNCC stands for conservative. Your name is now conservative.
Conservative. You know what's really sad? I could probably pull more people being conservative than I will pull being a liberal. You know how sad that is? That's disgusting.
Speaking of, that's actually something I've been talking about. Do you know who James Fishback is?
Oh, say the name one more time.
James Fishback?
No, I thought it sounded familiar for a second, but no, you're second.
So he is the groiper in Florida running for governor.
Okay.
And I despise him to an immense degree.
Okay.
And that I've been telling people this, that for the first time in my entire life, he is making me consider voting for registering as a Republican to vote in the primary against him, just to see my opposition to him.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So I guess speaking as if you label yourself as a conservative, you get more people. This is the first time in my life I have thought about that I need to. I might have a good reason to register it to this group to specifically mislead their polling to make them think that this guy is hated as much as possible and they should not put anything behind him in any capacity.
I see your reverse psychology. I enjoy it. And I see what you're saying, Ice Beans. It's not necessarily sad as it is relatable. I guess like sad in my sense is like when I speak with like really liberal people, they're gonna be like, wow, you're just like, you're scum. You're not at the same level. But it's like, we might actually agree with like 98% of the it just might be that, the last part of that they leave inside the milk, the 2%, that it just differs from us. And it's just the view or the way that people treat each other is kind of silly. But I agree. I honestly, I'm in middle of Alberta. It's about as conservative here in some degrees as far as it gets. And I've never had a problem with like conservatives or like that. And honestly, God, most of the time we agree. So yeah, you're right. It's just, you're right. It is maybe towards the more insane people. And that's the thing too, that I think is really toxic, is like allowing people like Glitterbell to shape how we might see ourselves or how we might come across to progressives or other people within our movement, which I think is kind of sometimes really toxic in this space.
No, you're just a conservative.
True. Ultra conservative. I actually tell my kid at least once a day I'm sending him to the coal mines to make some money. So, hashtag pro child labor. So I tell Minecraft is just a training ground for him. So
you're sending him to the mines.
I'm sending him to the mines. He's gonna learn today.
Very, very funny. I'm gonna say that I think that I will say, like, to kind of wrap up, I guess. I don't yet agree on the moral principle of it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I don't think that, well, for me to go, like, I agree. I think we both agree that it's a mark on someone's character. We might disagree on to the degree of the mark on someone's character.
Mm-hmm.
You might value it more than I do, which is fine.
Yep.
And I'm, like I said, I'm against all inconsistency in general. I just generally think I don't view it as extremely as other people do, and that's fine. We don't need to agree on that.
For sure.
The thing that I really wanted to communicate in the first place is just that when evaluating like someone's character, is that the specific treatment that I see these criticisms being applied can be dangerous.
Yep.
If they're used to purely dismiss a person.
Yep.
And that I think that there are times and place where we need to look at hypocrisy in objective context. There is actually something that I wanted to. This was where I actually started my thinking on this conversation.
Okay.
Is this is a completely separate thing, but this also fuels my issue with hypocrisy. But I think it's a lot harder to defend in the hypocrisy example. Do you know the difference in definitions of connotation and denotation or denotation?
I really thought about it probably, but right off the top of my head, nope.
So denotation just basically refers to what the definition of a word is and what it means.
Okay.
And then connotation is what that word means in context of social society.
Okay, makes sense.
So like to use hypocrisy as an example, the denotation just means a conflict between what your stated beliefs are and what your actions are, and then the connotation is that there's this moral upset in participating in it, that there's this context that hypocrisy is bad, and that there's this issues with believing this, and that's the prevailing understanding that hypocrisy is bad, and that's the connotation related to it. And in general, I have found myself wishing to distance myself from the connotation of words.
Mm.
There's a lot of examples where I bring this up where I think that people let the moral implications of words get in the way of actually
The
using
actual
them
words.
properly.
Yep, thank you. Had that last night. Yep, go ahead.
And that's something that, and I don't know the best way to rally against that. I try and point it out, and it seems to pointing out that you're using a word to have moral implications when it doesn't have moral implications almost never makes the person stop using the words that have moral
Nope.
implications.
Nope. And I mean,
So I don't. Mhm.
I think that unfortunately is a function of our lack of reading. I really think it is.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're somebody who has a fairly high level of literacy, you can understand the different contexts that the words are used and when to use them. Like last night it was partisan. It was a partisan hack, and then it was like, but they're not always going with the party to their own detriment. How could they possibly partisan? And it's like, well, no, they're being partisan because they're always like they're doing things in their best interest, and it's like that's not partisan. You're not using the word in the way it's supposed to be meant. That's not what that word means. Like you're missing the functionality of that word in which you use it. And honestly, if I had a good answer for that, I'd give it to you, because yeah, that drives me bananas as well.
Yeah, the only thing that I can do is I can point out the distinction between connotation and denotation.
Yep.
But that doesn't. I have tried. I tried to do that with hypocrisy in our first conversation, and I don't know if that necessarily came off because I actually do think the internal description of hypocrisy does probably have an inherent flaw in it. Like I think you could argue that inconsistency isn't necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, because when we're talking about hypocrisy, we're talking about a form of inconsistency.
Yep.
And then inconsistency itself is viewed as this isn't a question, this is a part of a wrap up, and we're kind of agreeing here. I just means for context. Is that inconsistency is inherently has a little bit of bad, but I don't think it needs to hold a moral it doesn't need to be a moral failing that people have inconsistencies. I just think that
no, yeah, definitely not. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not a necessitate that it does, but it can be a precursor to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess in a lot of my conversations about hypocrisy, I've tried to emphasize the connotation denotation argument. I think it doesn't exactly work with this conversation, because I don't know if there's really a usefulness in pointing out that hypocrisy in our application of the word is neutral.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's a usefulness in that, which might have been my failure back in 2021. I think I remember back to a debate I had with Carol over the word discrimination. Where Carol wanted to exclusively use the word discrimination to refer to the profiling of people within a marginalized group. And I
Okay.
wanted to use the word discrimination to refer to preference.
Okay.
Because for example, when you go to this was the example, like when you go to the store and you prefer a Granny Smith over a red apple, you're discriminating against the red apple. And I think there's usefulness in defining the word that way, because I think it separates I think it what's the word? It charges discrimination, and it charges racism to be a thing that it's not.
Mm.
Which I think is the danger of the connotation of discrimination. So this is an argument that I've had across many words, across many things, that I think that in general it's useful to try and separate what society views as the meaning of a word from how we should actually be using the word.
Yeah, I'd largely agree with that. Yep. That's a tough battle. That's a forever uphill battle, I think, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. And I don't think that hypocrisy is necessarily the best example of that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my thinking in our original conversation.
Yeah, no,
when I was saying that hypocrisy isn't inherently bad, I was trying to draw at the denotation and not the connotation.
Yeah, you're trying to say, hey, society labels this thing as bad. We shouldn't necessarily label it as bad in this instance. Like, there's a lot more that goes into. It's like if you have a checklist, it's like, is this hypocritical? Yes, and it's like, well, is this bad? And it's like subsection A, B, C, D. Like if you have these certain things that are met, I'm just vaguely, alluding to it here. Yeah. But yeah, then it would make it morally bad, but it's not just the word or the thing making it bad. Yeah. You got to be able to separate the two. Yeah.
So that was the original point of my conversation. I feel like I've gotten better at articulating that.
Yep.
I will say it was interesting, and I eventually moved you off on this because you had this distinction between and I didn't realize that you were saying this at the time of our conversations. You would always preface, like, I would ask you, is it wrong to do hypocrisy in this example?
Mm-hmm.
And then you would always say, if you're trying to remain internally consistent, yes, it is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But then the part that gets missed is that the initial phrasing of if you're trying to remain internally consistent, and that's because that's not a defense of that's kind of not responding to the claim, I guess. It is, but it's like I'm trying to ask you as a person, not someone who values this thing inherently.
Yeah, and I mean that is kind of the hard part about this is like me as a person. Yeah, I think if people are going to espouse values, I think it's pretty when you don't do things and it's pointed out to you that you're not doing things. Like to me, the person that would advocate against like your animal testing one, if they were hard, staunch, don't ever use any product that's ever been tested on animals, and then they go and take the medicine, I'd probably look at the person being like, I'd probably just straight up tell them, it's like, wow, you're kind of a bad person. Like you've been claiming all this shit, and how many people have you influenced into not taking medicine, and all of a sudden one thing happens to you and you're like, whoop, this value. Like, yeah, I would look pretty piss poor on that person. But I would also recognize like that's like, it's okay that values and things change over time, but it definitely speaks volumes when in the moment it changes out of convenienceness, right? Like there's going to be a little bit different. And yeah, the way I'm going to functionally describe how it's happening and versus how I'm going to look at it are kind of going to come across very differently. And they're going to them to themselves are going to look very hypocritical and like, oh, you don't actually care about this shit. And I was like, well, I do, but it's like on the back of this kind of other thing and how this is working and like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that overall, I think we're at a much clearer understanding of each other from where we were then. How much do you have the footage of that original debate?
Yeah, it should be. I think it's privated right now on my channel just because I tried to clean up some of the older stuff. But yeah, it's still there. Yeah, it's from 4 years ago. I went back and looked on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll do a mashup on some of the stuff. Although I'm gonna have to. God, I'm an idiot. I forgot to hit the record, so I'm gonna have to I'm gonna download it from YouTube.
Yeah. It would be interesting to, because the thing I'm remembering is I don't remember if we were actually yelling at each other that much in that conversation.
God, I feel like there was at least one moment where we got heated.
Yeah, there might have been one of it, but I'm just trying to think back to it. But yeah, I enjoyed this conversation. I think that we got closer to what we both believe than we did previously.
Yeah, it was good. This is what I think I tried to want to bring to the space last time, and I think I just got burnt out from my own expectations of how I wanted things to go. And boy, some of the people I chat with, like I was scrolling through the things, it's like, man, some of the people I chatted with were, I really liked your conversation, but some of the other ones, man, they were just like, at the end of the day, they were really hard. They were hard conversations only in the fact that I never felt like there was any, because even in our conversation, I still felt like you heard me, and I felt like there was things that we at least could, there was agreements, there was things like I never felt like you were intentionally, maybe I did in the moment, but looking back, like I don't feel misunderstood by you or anything like that. But I definitely, looking back at some of the other conversations, were absolutely like people made an effort. It's like making an effort not to understand what it is that I'm saying.
That if they're
So
like if they're, but yeah, I think it's been fun
yeah.
to see how we've come. I like this topic. I do think that the number one change in my stance is that because at that point I was like, I didn't even realize I was saying this. I was like, separate connotation and denotation. Connotation is harmful,
Hmm.
and that we need to look at hypocrisy in this way. And I was kind of ignoring the fact that even with the pure evaluation of like what the word means, we kind of already label that as bad.
Hmm.
We view inconsistency as bad, and I think there's good arguments to view inconsistency as bad.
Hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's a good. I mean, you got to have some kind of litmus test, and sometimes it's
Yeah.
the thing that rears its head the quickest and usually the most in your face, more than anything really a person does. So, especially because, man, there's some people that they advocate, and then it's not even like they're doing shit behind closed doors. They'll do shit in the open, and it's wild to me. Like, realistically, I'm with you. Like, at this point, if a Republican does something, it's almost pointless to point out the hypocrisy, because we just know they're hypocrites. We're aware of that criticism. We're aware that they act like that. There's no really utility because nobody seems to give a fuck about it. So in that instance, like was the guy that was cross-dressing and had the big fake titties, it would be really silly. It's a really silly criticism. Be like, oh, look at they, fought against LGBT and look at their cross-dressing. They were so against drag queens. Like, yes, we know. Thank you. The Republicans are they're hypocrites. But what a better topic for that is like, why the fuck should we care what they're doing, right? Like, why is this even something we're fixating on? Who is, like, why are we getting lost in this sauce instead of talking about actual issues that are happening, right? So I will agree with you. There's definitely times where hypocrisy bogs down the actual topic at hand, and you either need to dismiss it and move on from it, or or get bogged down on the minutia. Huh?
Sorry. I wonder how much more productive the conversation around his son would have been if the big complaint about him is that he wanted to kill all landlords rather than like that he owned a house.
That he had a big house.
Because the fact is that I didn't even know that he wanted to. Like, I vaguely knew about it, but he likes to vaguely gesture towards his positions.
Yep.
But like if someone had made it clear to me that, like, hey, this guy wants to kill all landlords, and this is the implication of that, I think that would have swayed me a lot more.
Swayed you a lot more, and yeah, and that's part of the propaganda machine that I've noticed more over the years. Is, you're right, the actual criticism gets lost in the propaganda kind of conversation, as with the cross-dressing dude, right? Like, honest to God, who the fuck cares if he cross-dresses? Nobody. Not even not a soul on the left should be talking about how, like, bad it is for this guy to cross-dress, or really at him at all. I personally think she probably leaked that shit herself, Kristi Noem, just to try to hopefully take heat off herself as a distraction technique. Because at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? We know they're hypocrites. We know they speak out against LGBT shit and do the exact same thing. That's just such a nothing burger. But I agree with you. It'll get dragged down, and same with the the flaunting of the wealth. Well, we should all know that he's kind of a hypocrite with his wealth. Like, the bigger conversation is why the fuck is he's death to all landlords type deal, and shit like that. I totally agree, and I'm guilty of getting bogged down in the minutia, or not even minutia. It's bullshit. It's pig slop, as anybody else. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think we thank you for talking with me.
Yeah, of course, always.
Fun conversation.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come on.
I remember you said that we could use it as a mechanism to catch up, but I am a little bit tired.
Oh yeah, no, please take your lead, my friend.
But I should hop on another time to also catch up at some point.
Yeah, well, I need to start doing, my summer season's about to start, and of course that's when I feel the most ambitious. But we'll see what my time while I'm working brings, and what the fall kind of brings next year of what I want to do. I want to do more things. I want to have some panels and shit, and have more conversations like this and stuff. So
thank you to Ice Beans for being the best moderator possible.
Hell yeah, amazing, whitest woman I know.
And just for the spice, you terrible conservative, how dare you, go cross dress.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna go a picture of Al Gore right after the stream. Actually, I've already got him queued up in my fleshlight, and his picture is taped to it. So that's my plan, anyways. Might even do Justin Trudeau after the flags. The flags have motivated me. Justin Trudeau, I'm just motivated now. It's not even a hate thing. It's a motivational thing.
All right, I'll catch you later.
Okay, sounds good. Take care. Hear my mom laughing in the background. Lol. Rafflecopter. Well, this has been the Rawtism podcast. It's also been the Dumbass podcast because I forgot to hit the record button, so I'm going to have to go spend the 6 hours it takes to download this off YouTube because for whatever reason, if you want to upload something, it's lickety split. We got you. Nothing, pal. But if you want to download something, saying, we'll mail it to you. We'll mail you a flash drive with the episode on it. You're welcome. You're welcome. That's the least we can do is email you the flash drive. So if you enjoyed the stream, hit that like, hit that subscribe, be cringe. Also, let the autism flow through you, all that good stuff. And we're going to catch you on the flippity flop, guys. Peace. If you enjoyed that video, hit that like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can get the latest video.